Oh, I see him in the document.
Yep.
It is 9:30 on a Thursday night, and you are tuned into Beltway Radio and Beyond, which can mean one and only thing.
Oh,
Ah!
wow. There it is.
This
There
is
the
ChipChat.
bell.
Welcome
Wow.
to ChipChat. I'm Chip. Who are you, Tess?
You just told him, buddy. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I upgraded. I got a new bell at the thrift shop.
I don't know about the bell sound. I can't really give it did have a good. No, it's a good. Yeah. That is good.
It does not have anything offensive on it either.
Oh, good. We finally don't have an offensive bell.
Yeah. Well, offensive looking. But, I mean, the offensive bell sounded really good.
It did. But that has a good ring to it.
Yeah, I like it, and I think I can tune it a little bit. It's got like a little adjustable knob.
Tune the bell. Okay.
There you go.
Well, where we go. Our best part of the production is back.
We're back in
Just joking, bro.
high fidelity.
Yeah, right.
You're looking a little trimmed up there, sir. Did you get your
I did. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, can't be looking like there are times where you just let it run wild, and that sometimes that can be a symbol of how you're feeling,
or the playoffs.
Or those are good positive reasons though. Nice playoff beard is always good. I mean,
that's right.
The Wizards aren't going there.
No. You're tuning up for your Capitals playoff beard.
Oh,
right?
there we go. Yes, there it is.
Yeah,
yes.
Obviously
that is going to be exciting.
Although 3-game win streak.
3-game win streak.
Not a sentence I had used this year.
Crazy.
In reference to the Bullets.
It's insane. And I'm going to go watch them tomorrow. But they're playing Cleveland, so they'll probably get destroyed.
They're going to get destroyed. And now
3 games, it's okay. Who knows? I watched them beat Joker. So maybe the broken clock is right twice a day.
It happens.
It happens 3 times this week. So
3 times apparently in a row. Yeah.
So
it's like a miracle. All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is a special edition of Chip Chat.
Yes, it is.
Because we have a guest. Now I'm going to not be able to say this word because it's French. But the hood sommelier himself, Mr. Jack Bigadoo, is joining us.
Let's go.
That's going to be exciting. We're going to ask him how to say this word because he is cultured and knows how to say things.
We need more cultured people in the show because we're not, obviously. So.
Well, you're international.
I guess that's it. From time to time.
Yeah. When it suits you.
When it suits me, yeah.
When you need to escape.
Yeah, exactly. We never know when that'll be.
Well, in speaking of that, we'd like to tell everybody, please hug a Fed. They're having a tough week. If you know one, hug them. Ask first. Don't just run up and hug them, but be like, you look like you could use a hug. Do you need a hug?
It's a lot.
Rough week, yeah. There's updates on that. Elon and the 19-year-old muskrats have been running all over the government, taking down agencies like they are levels in a video game. Lord, please send them all girlfriends so they can stop this nonsense. Amen.
Now we need a rat czar. Was the muskrats?
I thought didn't we have a rat czar? Didn't Muriel give us a rat czar?
Yeah, New York has a rat czar and a lot of places have the federal government obviously needs a rat czar.
Well, they need some cybersecurity, which we're gonna mention. Let's see. Oh yeah, Treyon gets the boot.
Yeah, that did happen. Was that Tuesday? Yeah,
I think so.
Yep, I think so.
And you can order a pair of boots from Temu again. or Temu. How do you say it? I don't know how to say that.
I think you got it right, Temu. I think that's correct.
I mean, it looks like Temu.
That's the story of USPS and allowing China.
The super quick reversal of policies. Yeah. Because when people talk about the chaos of the Trump administration, they're not really ready for this like super fast kind of chaos that we have now. That like previously we had like level 1 chaos. Now we have like level 16 chaos.
Right.
Like we can do things wrong faster.
Yeah. What is the whole maybe this is the Elon Musk is bringing that whole Silicon Valley approach of what is it? Move fast and break
things. Yeah.
Doesn't work. It just doesn't work. I can hold on to this, but it just doesn't work with the federal government. And I don't know. We're gonna see. Basically, we're gonna see if these systems, how far they bend, and which ones break. Not everyone is gonna have the ability to bend. But yeah, I just don't know if the whole like whatever this demon mode shit that he talks about and like coming in and sleeping on, and just because like you come in and sleep on the floor at your job doesn't mean that you're doing the job right. Like, yeah, I understand like that we need to be here or do these all-nighters, and I think it's so interesting though when you do this with the federal government because you can tell that they are operating not only on the weekdays but also on the weekends, where the federal government also does not. It's like they're using those 2 days to go in and wreak havoc. Along with that during the week as well, but they are there over the weekends, which I also assume is just kind of a shock to like the federal workforce, where they're like, "Whoa!" Like,
well, it's also a little bit illegal.
A little
to the list of things that are illegal that they're doing, but yeah,
it's insane.
Speaking of which, we also will have a segment about Trump starting his new legal losing streak, which he had maintained through his entire first presidency, but now he gets to start a new one. So it's going to be great. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. There's been updates to some of these stories even today.
That's true.
So, yeah. Do you have a word?
I'm so busy today. I forgot to send in the lovely picture of that Clarence Thomas and Pam Bondi. I think her mom looking very concerned that Pam Bondi was getting sworn in. I want to say it was her husband there. President Trump is also there in this picture. If you see, I think it was in Axios this morning, and you'll see it. And then like he's like standing off to the side. And what is very funny is anytime President Trump is in an area of the White House with George Washington looking at him, George Washington always has glaring at him.
Yeah, he always looks like he's glaring at him.
He's glaring at him if he's like British and in a red coat. It's every time you look at it, he's always just like glaring at him.
Oh, I see this photo.
Have you seen this photo? It's kind of it's a lot's going on in it.
There is a lot going on.
So much. I do implore anybody to go. It's a lot that's happening in there.
So we know that Trump stands weird. Neighbor Clarence is
very weird. I don't. Yes.
See, maybe I didn't need to trip him. He's gonna fall over already.
Clearly, that picture. He's just kind of like hunched, like.
It's like he's leaning forward. Like, are you gonna say something?
Something? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I wonder.
That's it. That's an incredible image.
It's a very if people have a chance, go look at that image.
I don't know what to think of this.
It's a lot.
Right. G-Dub looks like.
Right? He's just
how did this guy get in here?
What we always were afraid of.
Benedict, so good to see you. And what's with this weird necktie?
Didn't expect you here. Is the look right?
Yeah.
Again,
it's like I know I wore knickers, but what's up with your weird tie? Never seen a man with hands so small operate a microphone.
But I mean, he might, based on George Washington wearing his knickers, he might get, ostracized in this day and age.
It's a little too queer for the modern.
I was going to say the great general.
Well, he wasn't my general.
Wasn't my. That's there you go. Wouldn't that be crazy? George Washington wasn't my general. It was, but anyways,
okay.
Do I have? Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a word? We're DJing to ourselves too much.
Yes.
Do you have a word?
Yes, I have a word.
Okay, let's see if this works. So sit back, grab some
paddles.
It's whiskey time. You're listening to the best show, the only show, ChipChat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
Welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's probably up?
All right. Tez, you ready for a new segment?
A new segment or a news segment?
It's double entendre. No, this one is a new segment about the news.
There we go. Okay.
It's called Tales from Florida, our favorite place. So what does Florida have a lot of?
Old people?
Yes.
Florida or not?
There you go.
There you go. What else does Florida have? Gators.
Yep, gators. There you go.
Guns.
Yeah.
Sun.
Yes. Jack's helping.
Jack's rednecks.
Yeah.
Medicare fraud.
Yes.
It also has Donald Trump, right?
Well, yeah, he is technically a resident of Florida.
And also obviously like my fellow peoples, not all, but the white ones, the Cubans, the white Cubans.
Yeah, white Cubans.
Yeah, as well as Haitians and Venezuelans.
Yeah, not so many anymore. So here's the thing, right? Venezuela, country that's falling apart in a lot of ways. Chavez was a dictator there for a long time. Then Nicolas Maduro came in, and he hasn't left. He's lost 2 successive elections, and he's just like, nah, I'm not going. And so, like,
foreshadowing. Sorry, let me know.
Don't tell him.
That's not funny.
So the people of Venezuela have been fleeing for a long time, and a lot of them have ended up in Florida, and a lot of them have been granted what's called temporary protected status, TPS, because it's not safe for them to go back under any circumstances, whether they overstayed or whether they're illegally here or whatever. It's just not safe. We can't, in good conscience, as human beings, send somebody back to a place that is that dangerous. And a lot of the people who left Venezuela left during Chavez's rule, who was a socialist dictator. And so many of them that have become citizens, loyal Republicans, right? They love...
The left is inflammatory to them. Like when they think of the left.
Right. They hear Democrat, they hear socialist, they hear communist, they hear Chavez. It's the same reason Cubans and like, for whatever reason, Vietnamese expats, they all, the diaspora tends to be fairly right-wing because of their experience back home. So it was a big shock when many Venezuelans found out that Donald Trump revoked TPS for all of their fellow countrymen. In a surprise of all people whose faces have been eaten by leopards, the Trump administration's latest immigration shakeup has sent tremors through the Venezuelan community as some face a possible return to a country whose regime has been dubbed illegal by the United States. Trump revoked TPS for 350,000 Venezuelans who are in the U.S. The protection will end in 60 days. And Yeah. It's not good. It's not good at all. Here's my favorite quote, though, right?
Oh, God. I know where you're going to go with this.
Yeah. TPS is granted to immigrants in the United States who can't return to their countries because of natural disasters or political upheaval. TPS does not provide a path to citizenship, and administrations can issue an end to a country's TPS designation kind of whenever, right? Or they can extend it. Here's the quote. Ready? Quote, betrayed. We feel betrayed, more than betrayed, beyond betrayed, said Adelis Farrow, executive director of the Venezuelan American Caucus in Doral, Florida, a South Florida suburb dubbed Doralezuela for its large Venezuelan population. You know who has a golf course in Doral? Tiny Hands.
47.
Yeah. I don't like that. I don't like that he gets the number.
What do you mean? Of course he can do. Like, just because he's breaking all the rules, I mean, he doesn't mean we have to. That's
right.
it.
But there's many better names for him.
Oh yes, that's fair. Yes.
So I don't know. You can call him
more nasty, and he's like, your name. I feel you. My names don't have enough vitriol for you. You're like that.
Yeah. It's too gentle.
Gentle. What are you doing?
It's like whatever. There's a lot of good names. Jimmy Kimmel's had several. Yeah, so they're all mad, and they're like, I didn't think he was going to do this to us. We're one of the good ones, and it's like, oh, guys, what's your read? What are we supposed to feel about this?
There's so many. Like, which part should we try to tackle? Right? I mean, is it that we want to tackle the amount of support that Donald Trump was able to gain from groups that only would lose from the enactment of his policies? Like, I mean, if you want to attack that, I think, and right, prior to the election, the boogeyman really a lot, I think on the Democratic side was Black men were not going to be the ones who it was like, oh my God, Black men are not going to go support Kamala Harris. They're not going to go out. And while I think Donald Trump was able to gain a little foothold there, I mean, the numbers are still at 77, 78% that vote there. Like, they're huge numbers. I think if you look at our Latino brothers and sisters, and not just them there, but we'll focus on them because this is the story here. They made different choices, right? And I think I know your kind of thought process on this, not just with any particular group, but with any group that voted for him and now is looking back like what's going on. Like, I don't know, you don't have the time for them. I think, the Latino population, and right, it's just, I was reading, I think I had it up before while we were still in the studio, but I think Paula Ramos, she wrote this book, Defectors, and she just was kind of talking about the rise of the right in like the Latino culture in America, or Latinos in America. And she mentioned this thing called like tribalism, traditionalism, and trauma. And right, the traditionalism piece is that there are a lot of people, like whether in the Venezuelan community, in the Cuban community, obviously, that they don't see their Blackness that's attached to Latino culture, right? Like, if you whether it's from like a Cubans who, like, right, if you think about Cuba is like a slave state almost.
Yeah, right. It's one giant sugar plantation.
Right, exactly. And like, no matter who, like, you have most people, if you look into your lineage, you have some type of African roots, or if you look at like whether it's people from like Mexicans or anyone in Central America, right, or going into South America, there are a lot of like native in these individuals, right? And they have native blood in them, and that is, I don't want to generalize, but there are individuals I think of, right? And she uses this example of going into a Dominican hair shop in New York, and like, this person could be darker than me, like, and they don't see themselves as that. They don't have any connection to that. She talked a lot about the trauma piece, right? And just like a lot of these individuals are coming from dictator regimes, strongman regimes, and like almost that trauma piece is there, and like it's they almost maybe look to a strong man who's going to like stamp out the Marxism or the left, like the left. And when they say the left, I think it's a lot different than how we think of it.
It's very different.
Socialist,
and it's like Soviet right?
It's
like late Soviet period leftist, and
exactly,
Sandinistas and all of that kind
and
of.
They make the traditionalism part, right? They're like, whether it's the connection to the Catholic Church, right, with that influence from Spain, right? So if you combine like, oh, you kind of see your whiteness and like, I'm Spanish. Like I see, like I'm connected to to Spain, and then you tie that with the traditionalism that comes from the Catholic Church. Like, yeah, you can look to this Republican Party and you could probably feel at home and say, oh, hey, like even after you might have come here to this country, depending on however you made it here, but like you also being an immigrant, you can look at other immigrant stories and not find that connection. And obviously there's these groups, these are different people, like Venezuelans, Cubans, Mexicans, right? Like Salvadorians, Guatemalans. These aren't like it can't just say, oh, well, I look at them as being Latino people and they're all gonna think the same. But some of them are thinking the same, just not in the way I think people.
Well, they might not, obviously they're not monolithic, but
right.
to the Trump administration and to the sort of white supremacist aspects of American government, culture, history, whatever you want to say, they are all the same. And this is this sort of, I was thinking about this the other day, that like here we are talking about the Latino community and we're talking about them and we say Venezuelan, we say Salvadorian, we say Honduran, we talk about them in groups within that group, and nobody talks about the white community as like French white Americans or like Spanish white Americans or German white Americans, because this whiteness thing it's fake. It doesn't apply in any other way. We never talk about any other group in a monolith that way that makes any sense, but they do. And so then therefore they talk about it that way and create monoliths amongst other groups because it allows them to dehumanize and to, you know, I don't know, whatever. It is, yeah, to your very early point before we got on to your book report, it was was that I don't care. I'm actually very gleeful that this is happening and that these people are being betrayed, being confused.
But they're victims though. Like I just don't. I mean, and I know it's hard to look at it that way, but and like no one wants to hear that. But I think we just like we can zoom in on this one moment now. But I think if we don't zoom out and figure out like how like in some of this like the pandemic, I don't think we talk enough about that being a very huge shock to this country, and there's a lot of fallout from that. But even prior to that, though, groups of subscribe to like whiteness is what people subscribe to, right? We've seen that when people came here, right? Between like going into like the boom before like World War II in the sense, but like up like maybe even into like what 90, like people coming here, like whether they were Italian, whether they were Jewish, whether they were Irish, like a lot of people were like, oh, well, we come here. No one wants to hear about you being Irish. No one cares about that. No one wants to hear about your Jewish traditions. No one wants to hear about your Italian traditions. Good old white Americans are like, well, when do you like, no, this is how you need to assimilate. And right, to be able to have like the skin color, and a lot of Latinos are able to pass, right? And they can connect to that whiteness of Spain and fall into that. And I mean, a lot of people bought into this, and whether it's like the information, like we don't talk a lot about like specifically in South Florida, what that radio sounds like, right? If what we like, that is a huge information source, right? And these are like people.
Well, and YouTube now is sort of
YouTube is probably, yeah, of course, yeah.
You know, the reliance on YouTube in the Latino community as a news source is higher penetration than in any other group in the United States. It's outrageous, and it's just, I don't know what the percentage per hour of bullshit it is, but it's high.
And think about, like, we know, like, kind of a lot of those news stations, like the Spanish speaking stations in like South Florida, like that is like straight on propaganda, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like, it's straight on, like, that's what it is. And they know that the engagement even there, like, that's what gets people riled up, and listeners will continue on. When you transition this now to like a YouTube, to a Facebook, where then the algorithms are able to do this, and we already know, right, their only job is to drive engagement. We know that upset and being angry drives engagement, and then like this becomes this snowball rolling downhill where people's information sources have them now feeling the pain, because they're like, oh wait, I thought you were talking about those people. I didn't realize I was those people.
Well, they are those people the way a snowball has a chance in Florida. So speaking of hellholes like Florida, El Salvador. So Lil Marco of Florida, he's currently operating Secretary of State, who will soon find out that he is also what Alex Jones calls Mexican. Went down to El Salvador, which is a country that Alex Jones thinks is in Mexico, to talk to a guy who is the president of El Salvador, whose name is Nayib Bukele, who I would challenge anybody to look at that and see how Spanish that is. But his parents were not born in El Salvador, and somehow he got birthright citizenship and became president. I don't know how that works.
Birthright citizenship.
Funny, right? So Lil Marco goes down there, and he has a chat with Mr. Bukele, and he goes, hey, man, you know, you're kind of the envy of the Western Hemisphere because your crime rate went from being one of the highest in the world to one of the lowest in the world. And do you want to help us with that? And Mr. Bukele was like, yeah, absolutely. I've got a jail that holds 40,000 people, and I had filled it with 40,000 people, but now they're all gone. Let's not talk about why. And would you like to use it? He says. And Lil Marco's like, yeah, definitely. Let's see if we can cut a deal. And he's like, you know, for only $19.95 per day, you can put an American prisoner in a Salvadorian jail. So now he, quote, offered to house in his jail dangerous American criminals in custody in our country, including those of U.S. citizenship and legal residence, Rubio said, speaking next to him at a signing ceremony in San Salvador, the capital. It's not immediately clear whether the Trump administration planned to send incarcerated U.S. citizens to Salvadorian jails, but Rubio said that the U.S. was, quote, incredibly grateful for the offer and that he had spoken to Trump about it.
I mean, get Dylan Roof down there, I guess, as soon as you can. So I mean, that's what I mean. You know, if you want to get to like the most dangerous of our American
prisoners,
that is like he's on the high. He's a high one on the list, right? He couldn't even get off a federal. I mean, so
him and Tsarnaev are the only two still on federal death row. So yeah, send them both.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong. El Salvador's president. This is the one where I forgot what type of dictator they called him. They called him something, but like, is he the one where he's basically, hey, it's a full, like, all hands on deck crime approach where we're sweeping everybody off the street. This is the same guy.
That's
right?
The same guy. Okay. Yeah, and I think he called it. I think somebody called him the crypto dictator because he was like,
yes, he said he was going to change. I mean,
he was going to change the currency to Bitcoin, or maybe he did change the currency to Bitcoin. They still mostly use US dollars. They had been using US dollars. They're still mostly using US dollars. But he did.
I read this story though, and it just jumps out again because it didn't say, like, some people are saying, hey, we're going to, if you want the people you deport that are from our country, we will. But no, they're talking about American.
They're talking about just warehousing. So we know about private prisons in this country. Yes. We have more of them than anybody else. We know about prisoners. We've got nearly 2 million of them. We're great at locking up people and just generating revenue off of it.
13th Amendment, you know, all it's good. We got the other part of it where it says, you know, hey.
So imagine if you have an opportunity to not only make money at incarcerating people, but also to sort of have this like Botany Bay aspect of it, where the English were like, just literally just sweeping up people from Ireland, sticking them on a boat and sending them to Australia to just go there. And they were like, we don't care what happens to them after that point. This is the thing. Bukele did sweep the streets free of crime and the murder rates down to these incredibly low numbers because it's not counting all of the murders done by Bukele. And he's, it's all extrajudicial. There's no due process. They just murdered the gangs and forced them to kind of knuckle under or go into hiding. Those that they're not working with the government. I give this maybe about another year or two before somebody, turns out that he's running drugs or whatever else. It's, we've seen this story, especially in Latin America before, where you've got this strong man that does come in and then it turns out he's corrupt and the people try to rise up and then get shot at, whether it's Noriega, whether it's the Contras in Nicaragua. I mean, this story, the FARC in Colombia, this is the same story.
Petrol keeps going.
Yeah. Colonialism's a hell of a trauma to try to overcome, let me tell you. So I don't know, why anybody thought this was what we needed, but it's one of these stories that's like a big deal that is going under the radar at the moment because of all of the fire hose of bullshit that the Trump administration is throwing at us otherwise. So I just wanted to make sure that we pointed that out, that Lil Marco is making deals to ship American prisoners to third world countries for a profit.
Right, because that's what it's going to be, for a profit.
Yeah, and that's what you voted for, America. That is what everybody, all of those, insert group here who are likely to be arrested, of which I think both of us are squarely in that category now. Fortunately, I speak Spanish, so you better have to tune up yours.
I know, right? I mean, but when we say like, oh, the people who voted for this, like, he didn't win by like 12 percentage points or 15%. No. So it's still not like it is a majority, but it's not like this.
It's a slim majority. I understand that, but it is millions of people.
It is, but there's millions of people who didn't vote for this.
Also true, and we all get to be the ones who have to rebuild after these guys get shipped down to El Salvador. I don't know, like. You're lucky that there is a place like this that's not the barge, because I'm ready. I'm still in on the barge. So, yeah.
Well.
Anyway, that's our new segment, news segment about Florida, our favorite state. This is Tales from Florida. That was Tales from Florida. Tell you what, why don't we take a break?
All right, we'll take a break.
Because when we come back, we're going to talk to somebody who knows a lot about immigration, who knows a lot about culture, who knows a lot about the rest of the world, and also knows a lot about something that you and I care a lot about, which is whiskey. So, yeah. So when we come back, we're going to talk to Jack, the Hood Sommelier. I'm trying to get it right. I really don't know how to say this word.
Sommelier? I don't think that's... Is that...
Sommelier? I don't know.
Sommelier.
Yeah.
Isn't that the money on The Sims?
They just turned 25.
They did. Wow, which is, oh God, that's crazy.
Crazy, right?
Insane.
I was playing SimCity on Windows 3.1. Get out of here.
Oh God.
Yeah, back in the late 1900s.
Yeah, right. That is exactly when it came out.
That's
exactly when it was out. We are here. You are from the late 1900s.
Yes, thank you. Shut up.
Me too.
All right, we're going to take a break while Tez learns to stop being this way and respect his own.
Aegis.
God damn it. Get off my lawn. We're going to take
a break. Mow it.
You're listening to
Gas Howard mower. Sweeps.
The kids in your rock and roll. welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's popping out?
That was apparently something called Love Lightside from Love Succubus 2-pack by Too Mellow.
Okay. That's a hell of a title there. Love Lightside from Love Succubus 2-pack by Too Mellow.
Yeah.
I've just told you something in a very unique language. So if you crack the code, you're going to get a Bitcoin. So.
Oh, right. Sure. Yes. Drive the engagement.
Exactly.
Pump the algorithm. Okay. Speaking of engagement, Jack Bigadoo is known as the Hood Sommelier. He's an expert in whiskey, and not like how you and I are like experts in that we like drink a lot of it.
Too much of it.
Yeah. But like a real one, like he knows stuff about it. Yeah, he's traveled all around the world doing education events about spirits. Like us, he's also a girl dad, but unlike us, he's like super qualified to actually discuss something useful, which is cool. And the cool thing that he's useful at is booze, which is super cool. So, Jack, welcome to Chip Chat.
Welcome, Jack.
Hello, sir. Okay, so I just want to like get this out of the way. When I listen to your videos, you say the word sommelier, so like super officially, like in French or whatever. Can you teach us how to say this word properly?
Is sommelier.
Sommelier.
Yeah.
Sommelier.
Yeah. Sommelier. Yeah.
So if I say that, am I going to look like a pretentious idiot, or is it?
Actually, most sommeliers will respect you because you're saying it the right way.
Sommelier.
Yeah, I've heard so many people mess with the word is sommelier. I even heard one of my friends on a drunken night once. It's like, Jack, you the hood Somalian. And I'm like,
no, that's not true. That is not where you're from.
That's not it's not a different country.
I've heard every version of it. It just seemed like it's in America that they always messed up the name because every other place in the world get it right because obviously they embrace more of the different side of things. So yeah.
Yes. Only in America do we expect everybody to only speak one language, and we're impressed when you have 2 or 3. Yeah. Where the rest of the world, everybody has 2 or 3.
Yeah.
It's the prerequisite, right?
Yeah. Americans go to other countries and demand they speak English.
I've seen it happen.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
I've seen it happen. I think I've seen it happen in Paris.
Yeah, I'm sure. Of course. It's sort of a famous interaction there, right? It's like, what is all these French people? Why can't they speak English?
Yeah.
They're not speaking German. You're welcome. Yeah. So that's we're doing it. One of my favorite like Simpsons moments is when Homer is house sitting for Mr. Burns, and he's like, "Oh, there's this phone, in the like sauna or whatever," and he picks it up and he calls Thailand, and he's like, "Hey, Thailand," and he goes, "Uh-huh. So you guys talk like that all the time, huh? Okay, see you later, bye."
That is definitely that's the American spirit when they travel abroad. Unfortunately.
So, okay. Sommelier.
That's
sommelier. Right. Okay. I'm going to get there. I promise. So, close friend of the show and occasional, co-host, Distilled, who is also a whiskey judge, right? I believe you know her. She's an expert. She always tells us not to get like super hung up on the tasting notes, pretentious tasting notes or whatever, and to just drink what we enjoy. Now, I know that you have a big thing about details. So what say you about this drink what you like kind of thing?
I mean, I 100% agree with D. Even in my classes, I tell people you get a special treatment because you're with me. But the goal here is to guide you for you to understand that just like in anything we enjoy, if it's cars, if it's watches, Jordans, shoes, whatever it is that you're in, there are always levels to this. So you may actually, come to me and I'm showing you an AP, all, maxed out on all lunar turn dial, all that, but at least you know what real or that level is. It may not be your level. You may just want a Seiko normal watch and you'll be just fine. So, but at least the objective here is to show you that there is more than just what you know. If, as educators, you're not able to brighten somebody or widen somebody's range of view of something they actually enjoy, you didn't do your job. You're not there to patronize the person.
Yeah,
You're
that
there
was
to just open their mind to other stuff.
That's kind of what I was wondering. Like, people, it's true for like a lot of educators, whether it's about, as you mentioned, like with whiskey, or even like formal education with, literature professors or whatever. And everybody, has this sort of criticism of like, oh, these guys are up in their ivory towers. They're a little bit too fancy. And it's like, okay, maybe Jack knows everything there is about whiskey, and maybe he's like a super expert, and maybe also sometimes he just wants a Jack and Coke, and like that's okay.
And that is, I even said that. I made a post last week talking about no one cares about the details, and this is coming from someone who is detail oriented.
Who cares about it, right?
No one cares about the detail, because I took a class from this guy that has been in the industry over 20 years. And he called it bona fide, right? Like bona fide, in the sense of your shit.
Right.
But in this class where we are talking about technicality of things, in every quiz that you'll take, he will say, should you tell the people you're talking to about this spirit, about like proof of what goes into the barrel, or type of grain, and what the level of what you call humidity should be in the grain, and all this, and the answer is always no, unless they ask. So it kind of changed my view of how I present, because my biggest class, or the class that I host the most, is whiskeys from around the world. So imagine teaching people, we get on this plane, this whiskey plane, and we're going to travel around the world to learn how things go. I made it dummy proof. I'm like, oh, Japan, we are here. Arigato gozaimasu. We are here now. Here but me is always about telling a story. How does the history of the world and the history of your whiskey come hand to hand? Let's talk about the war. Let's talk about colonization. Let's talk about how is it that Japanese people learn how to make whiskey. Right.
Apparently, they're great at it too.
Right. Correct. How does New Zealand now know it? How did Canadian make whiskey, but theirs are different than America? Then we get to talk about what people can relate to in the world, right? Oh, my ancestors are from here, and my grandma tell a story about how they were chased from here and had to move to this country, and those people took their skills with them. Then all of a sudden now, no one cares about they use 100% malted barley, they distill at a certain proof, it drop here, and then they have to mature it for this time. But then when we were tasting, I'll be like, oh, who can guess what type of cask this was in based on what you're tasting? Then it become more an interactive thing where people learn something, but they're not going home asking themselves, do I have to bring a pen and paper to write this shit down, because I'm drinking and I don't remember shit you said.
Jack, no, that's profound, because just almost like you're drawing them in with something that they can kind of, hey, like we're all here together, like, and people love to hear these stories.
Oh, yeah.
That's how we're able to communicate, right? Before written word.
I start. I mean, everyone here who have been on a plane, I start my class the same way. Yeah. Welcome to the whiskey plane. I'm your Captain Jack. Make sure you strap in. In this class, we will not bite, touch, or, unless somebody want to, touch anybody. We're going to hold our glasses. We are not going to lose our glasses. In case of any turbulence, in whiskey turbulence, we are going to keep hydrated, and we're going to make it. We'll be flying to 13 different countries around the world. Sit down, relax, ask questions, and let's go. That's always how I start my classes. So that we're going on a journey. Sometimes I feel cheeky. I'm like, we going on a trip in our favorite rocket ship.
Hey,
That's all it's gonna be, just so people understand that it's not this guy that is X, Y, and Z that comes in. And obviously, I have to remind people. I tell people the same. I have an accent. If you don't hear something, ask. I will not be offended.
Right.
I will tell you what you need to hear, how you need to hear it. And for the last probably 3 years that I've been seriously, teaching these classes, every single one of my clients, from women to men. I just came back from Vegas last week. A bunch of gun nuts, you know, government contractors, special ops. These people have seen war their whole life, right? And now they have this show where they're selling only like tactical gears and all the things that are there. Imagine me, a guy from Africa that literally is anti-war and afraid of anything military-wise because I've seen a civil war in a room with all these folks trying to tell them about whiskey. So it's a little different. We had to start with, talking about we were traveling around the world and we're like, oh, who here was stationed in Japan? And you got people raise their hand. Who here was stationed in Ireland? People here to the moment it become a conversation where it's like, yeah, really. Yeah, the temperature of Ireland is just so damp. I can see how the whiskey is not the same as New Zealand. And then it creates new connection because like people are like, oh, were you stationed there? What year? Like I was stationed there. So then all of a sudden now it's like, oh, we all are gonna come as one around this one thing that we call whiskey based on our individual experiences.
Right. Do you feel like the story? I mean, it's obvious that stories are easier ways for people to connect. And then, it'd be really different if you're just talking the technical aspects of the whiskey, and that'd be very difficult for people to connect. But I like what you're saying about how that the story then opens the door to discuss the technical. But when people go home, they're not going to tell their friends about, oh, this whiskey was distilled at this thing. They're going to tell the story of this family moved to this country and set up a still, and this is what they were making. Because that's the thing. That's what anybody, even all the brands, like all the brands rely on the story of the whiskey.
Yes.
They're not talking about
it. More brands sell whiskey telling either false story, made up story, real stories, just to sell their story. But also, when people come on my podcast, I warned them immediately. I said the reason why I could have made a podcast where I would record and then post, but that choose specifically, which it doesn't help me to make more money. I choose specifically to make my podcast live. And the main reason why is because I want people to see you tell your story to me live. We are not going to edit it. We're not going to create in the eyes of an angel moment. We are not doing that. I want people to hear you because people need to understand three things: where are they putting their money, who are they supporting, and how can they support you better. And if that comes through by your story, and I want you to tell it raw, we hear it, and if it's really moving, then I'll cut it later and post it just as a reel so people can actually hear it again. But if it's not, it's sitting on YouTube, it's sitting on Facebook, you can go watch it anytime.
Well, that's what we're doing right here. This is live radio, no safety net. So, if you fuck up, then never mind.
Jack, I had a question around, like, do you find the information is available to everybody now, right? People can go online, do the research. Do you see people coming in like trying to almost be like the expert and not listening to the expert? Because I feel like almost like for me, it's like, oh, if this person is the subject matter expert on it, so I just want to sit back and just take it in. But it feels like now we have a lot of people who come in and they're like, well, you're the subject. I'm here to challenge the subject matter expert.
It just happened to me when I in that class in Vegas. Not only this person came in late, right? They also wanted to kind of like every other word I'll put out. They'd be like, yeah. I know that. Yeah, it got to be in the and for me, it's always fun because I will let you keep bringing in because I know there's one detail that you are going to fuck up. And I wait for that detail because I turned that detail into a teachable moment. But really, that teachable moment is to remind you that regardless of how much you think you know, if you just shut the fuck up and listen, you may be a better version of who you are, right? And to correct the person, I'll always tell them, I used to exactly think like you. I would go to classes. I would tell people all the things I know, even though it's irrelevant. But let me correct thing you say. So what happened? I start my class usually in the origin of whiskey. So from North America, from North Africa, then we come to Ireland. We start with distilling. So the last place we stop in is usually France, and then from France we come to America. So he was just at the end of France, and then we're in America, right? We come to America. I'm talking about Christopher Columbus, how it was take over. Then I'm talking about the migration of people that came from America. Irish people were here, English people were here, and they brought with them distilling. That's what they're good at. That they did. They brought that same culture here. Distilling started here, and we going into the history of how people started distilling. I tell them about moonshiners, why is they called moonshine, and all the little trick things that they know. And I'm like, but the best thing that was brought to America actually were from the French. And I'm like, that's why it's called Bourbon. Bourbon actually is a French language. It's not an English language.
Right.
And I go, and this guy immediately, after he cut me off 3 times, goes, yeah, I love that bourbon is only made in Kentucky, man. I'm going there next week. Right? Perfect. It was a perfect statement. So I'm like, oh, perfect. Now you fucked up. Let me actually take the opportunity. So, and then I'm like, then I say, can I say, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people think what you think. The average, and just to bring him down a little more, I said the average consumer, since he announced himself as somebody who knows everything,
now he's an average.
The average consumer thinks that because back in the early 1800 to early 1900, a lot of Kentucky made the wave into making more bourbon. But at that time, bourbon was happening in Missouri, bourbon was happening in Tennessee, bourbon was happening in other places. And then I stopped the whole class. I said, let's check your gangster. And he looked at me and I said, do you know what the TTB is? And he is like, oh, isn't that the people that regulate alcohol? I said, perfect. You know what it is. According to the TTB, bourbon as a spirit. I say, if you were here on time. So I brought up every single thing that makes this a novel class. I say, if you're here on time, I start by telling people there is 3 things that define a word whiskey. It has to be a certain type of grain, it has to be a certain type of yeast, and it has to be a certain type of water. That's what to be called whiskey. Those 3 ingredients have to come together some way, somehow. But then I told everybody that the reason why we are traveling around the world is because every single part of the word take pride in their name. It's Irish whiskey because of a certain reason. So according to the TTB, since now you are an average consumer, bourbon can only be made in the United States of America.
Yeah.
That
and it doesn't have to also be 51% corn. Isn't that like one of the rules?
See, you are doing the same thing he did. You're giving too much details.
I'm asking. I don't know. I made that up.
Right? Because now if you ask me what type of grain, then I would tell you that. But for
is that the rule? I don't know what I read that someplace.
That is the technical rule.
Okay, I didn't know.
Bourbon in America has to be made, the mash bill of grain have to be made with a minimum of 51% corn.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So, but does the bourbon, because I the bourbon piece and like it being French, because does that also come from like be prior to like I guess the Louisiana Purchase, right? Like the Correct. French, right? That is all theirs. So wherever they're making it, they're not just making it in Kentucky, right? They're making
Correct. But obviously Kentucky have seen that wave of settlers that came through. If you go through Kentucky, you have Versailles. Right? Kentucky has more French city names than any other place, even more than I think New Orleans, because you have Paris, Kentucky, so Paris, Kentucky. You have Versailles, Kentucky.
Wow.
Louisville.
Wow. Louisville. I was going to say.
Louisville, right? So all these places there you even have Montpellier, Kentucky. So you have all these major cities in French that have literally their replicate. I was telling somebody, if I ever had, a brand ever ask me, what, since you speak French, what would you ever do if you have an opportunity? I'll be like, I would do from Paris to Paris. So I would start in Paris, Kentucky, talking about the distillery around it, and then fly to Paris and ask them if I've ever had of all these whiskeys that obviously are a segment of Paris, right? It's a cool idea because there's so many similarities.
Then you could go to like Paris, Texas, and then try out all the stuff there. I'll come with you. I like this idea. I remember in Virginia we had, what was that class called? White history class. And in white history class, they taught us about Bourbon County and the French settlers in what is now Kentucky. So that they were very clear about it. White history is important. People don't get enough of that in school anymore. There should be a month for it. Okay, so you mentioned that you speak French, and I want to say we did a little research, found out that you originally hail from Togo, which is impressive. I know exactly one other person from Togo, is a guy that I used to work with. So tell us about Togo and how you got here to the States.
So honestly, this was more as a punishment, really, because
they punished you and sent you to America.
Yeah, because
man,
a friend of my dad said that his son was here and he grew really fast. He became a man quickly, right?
Oh, I hate when parents do this. Oh my god!
And my me being the oldest of the house, and after I graduated really early from high school. I was 17 already, 16, 17 when I graduated, and everybody thought I was going to be this progeny, right? And no, 17 turned, hormones went high, met what a girl is, and I then lost my shit. Just college,
story old as time.
Right. Yeah, I didn't want to go to college, didn't want to do anything. Then I worked for my dad for a little bit, and it was more girls. It was just crazy, and he wanted me to do something. I was set to go to med school, all of it, and because there's only 3 careers you can have in an African household, so obviously I didn't go for any of those 3 careers. Hell, I was doing theater and music when I was
theater and music. What is wrong with you?
I'm like the disgrace of the family, which is the 4th career you can have. Right? I didn't want to be a doctor, and every time everybody asked me what type of doctor I wanted to be, I would lie and say I want to be a gynecologist. Everybody's like, oh, right? And it's like, oh, engineer, never said that in my mouth. So I was sent to America to become a computer engineer because it has to have some sort of engineering. So one of the greatest thing, the reason why I end up in Omaha, and I always praise this, is Bellevue University in Omaha, which is closer to Offutt Air Force Base and here in Nebraska, had a lot of probably the most multicultural set of professors and advisors out there. Nice. Most of their advisors all were either from Air Force brats, or they traveled around the world, and so the average teacher and advisor at Bellevue spoke 2 to 3 languages. They all retired Air Force people, and a lot of people obviously from the Air Force came there. But the advantage that he opened is they were one of the top schools in the Midwest to actually apply for. And if you called, you could talk to someone who spoke French. You could ask information. So a lot of us from West Africa end up usually in 3 major state. Is either Nebraska, is Iowa, University of Iowa, or we end up in Kansas at College St. Mary's, Kansas. Those were the 3 major universities that were given what they call I-20s. I-20 is the legal paper to admit you into a school, which allow you to get a visa. So one of the good things that I had going on for me is I always aced my English, language, in school. Like I graduated from a science field, but my language skills were pretty high. So it was easy for me to just write the English test and pass it and be allowed to come here. So I came here when I was 20 years old. I was just a baby, just had to learn life. Walk into that C++ class, and after I got
Lord.
I'm like, fuck no, I'm not doing this. So
C++, oh God. Okay.
Yeah. That was coding. I had to do computer engineering, and I after 2 years a year and a half in school, and my dad is like, dude, yeah, I got five other kids. School is getting too expensive. Remember when I told you I'm gonna pay for school? No, I'm not gonna do that. You figure it out. So, I had to grow up, fast. I did the typical immigrant thing. That's why when you guys are talking about immigration, I tell people, unless you actually been in a position where you don't know what it feels like to go from being legal to illegal or going through the immigration process, when people are talking about immigration, is so sensationalized, it's still put into this box that most people can't even understand that the average person can come here legally but quickly become illegal because
Right.
of maybe one checkbox that was
Yes.
wrong, one
Yes.
situation that went sideways. And that it was me. I came here as a student. I had a 4-year visa to go to school. Condition is I had to stay in school. Back in 2004, dude, paying 13 to 1500 every quarter to go to school, that was a struggle. Now that amount in those school now is like it's like 10,000 a
Yeah.
semester to go to school. And those parents there, yeah, they had the money for you to come to school, but that doesn't stop there. You have expenses, you have board and all those things. And all of a sudden now you see two or three of your friends going, I don't have any money. I had to go look for a job. They had to boss all around. I think I came 2 years before the rule changed. It used to be when you come here till 2002, when you came here as a student, they still give you a normal social security that is not written, cannot work without authorization of,
Right.
Department of Homeland Security, because they will allow you as a student to work 20 hours. They still
Sure.
do the same thing in Canada, right? They never changed that rule, but in America they did. So what happened at that time is it made it hard for all students to try to keep up, because it's not that we were afraid to work or couldn't work, but it's like, oh, you can't work. So you are now, one rule from somewhere, someone getting their dick hard in Congress and pushing something to change a small rule, it create a trickling effect on all these students. Like you're like, oh, your kid here in America can come and go to college and hold another job, but because I'm an immigrant, you're telling me that I can go to school, but I have to sit on my ass the whole day and still pay the school all the fees. How do you expect me to make all that money?
They
If
don't
my
expect.
own
I
kid
mean, that's
is struggling, how am I expected to make all that, right? So you start finding ways. You work for cash. You just trying to make ways to pay for school, and you pay for school for a while. You go one semester just to be able to keep that visa status for, because you missed two semester, and that visa is null and void. So you pretty much are gone. You can go back to school. So you go one semester, you skip one, you go one. So and most of the time you're sleeping in class because you've worked all these overnight shitty jobs that the only way you can actually find a job. But one of the things I wanted to change at that time also is I realized most people had the same struggle. It was language. So I changed my focus from taking classes that had to do with computer science, and I went to communication classes only. So
Mm.
public speaking, communication 101, and it's just because I just wanted to learn. So I went to working for at McDonald's, to walk in the gas station, seeing the guy interacting with people, and I'm like, are you guys hiring? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I work here because I want to talk to more people. I don't want to be behind smelling like fries every day when I get home. And for people that don't know, there is this distinctive smell that McDonald's
I'm
outfits
very
have.
aware of it.
You cannot take out of your clothes even if you wash them. So
Well aware.
I've done that. Working at a gas station kind of opened the door for me. It made me practice my English. I went from overnight clerk to middle day assistant manager to actually being a manager of a gas station. And during the way I met my ex-wife. I was blessed. I was 23, going 24 when I had my daughter, and we made it work. And obviously, we were kids when we met, and after a few years, it didn't work out because yeah, we were kids at that time. But we still have an amazing relationship. Our daughter is about to graduate in May this year. She's going to go to college. We did okay. We did okay in life, but as an immigrant, I had to change the rules. I was lucky enough that I met people in my life. I was at a gas station when this guy walked in and went, there's something about you. I don't know what it is, but I've been coming to this gas station for almost a month now. I feel like you probably be the best salesman I've ever met in my life. And
But
but I'd say I immediately looked at him, and my answer was no. And the reason why is because every multi-level marketing person stopped at this gas station to try to hire me to come sell some shit that I'm never going to use, and I said no. And he kept coming. And one day he said, how about you bring your family and you meet my family and let's talk about it. And he made me a promise. He said, come work for me. I'm opening a state farm agency. Work for me. And here's a rule. You work for me for a year. If you don't make more than what you made at a gas station, I'll pay you the difference and you can go find another job.
It's a good deal.
That's a deal I could not refuse. And that's pretty much where my life changed, because I went from working just in a gas station now to working in insurance. I went past my insurance test, failed miserably 5 times, never got never could get it because the way American texts are written didn't compute in my French head. But no, he was patient. He pushed me. Anthony was probably one of the people that changed my career field. And I became second year after I got my license, top salesman of associates there. And he looked at me, he said, you can do this. This is you. You explain things so well to people. He said, you are a natural squirrel. I just have to show you what tree you need to climb. You can climb and pick any nuts you want. You were just a lost squirrel, and you were just didn't know where to go. And that was my job. It was on my heart to help you, just to climb the insurance tree. So after 2 years of working for him, on my third year, he looked at me and said, I'm going to fire you in a year. And I said, what are you talking about? He's like, I'm going to fire you in a year. You got a year. In that year, I need you to do one thing. You do me a favor so I can take some pride in what you've done. He's like, you are an immigrant black man in America. You have no degrees, but you're actually about to make a lot of good money. There is some doors that can never open to you not because you're not intelligent, but because those people can only look at you by what is on a resume. So I need you to do me a favor. Go back to college and get a degree. Even if you don't use it. He said, I'm an insurance agent and I own this big agency. My field. Before that, I was a nurse and I was a pharmaceutical tech. I have an associate degree. I have a bachelor degree. I don't use them, but I still can say I have a degree. So he said, just so you can be an example for your own daughter, go and do it. So I took a year, went back. I went from hating every class in school, and I went science or business. I could write. I hate writing. I hate reading, but all these classes became just fun because they're talking about business, talking about strategy. I can do that. So in 13 months, I had a bachelor degree in business, and I did it easily. It didn't bother me, and I had a toddler sitting next to me while I was doing it, but it still didn't bother me. And got my degree a year later. He's like, yeah, it's time for you to go. You need to do this on your own. I didn't like that because it's almost like your dad kicking you out of the house again. Obviously,
yeah, right.
Internal traumas, but it was probably one of the best thing he could have done for me. He sent me out. He said, before you decide to become an agent, though, just let me give you a parting ways advice. You may want to use that degree a little bit and see if you like a salary better. And that's what I did. I went and worked for Kiewit. I was an SAP accountant, and I was a team lead since apparently I'm good with people. But they sent me to Canada because I spoke French. So I worked in Canada for a couple of years. But at that time, I got divorced freshly. My daughter was still growing up, and I got to come back because every time you try to talk to your kids, she's screaming on the phone because you're not there. And I came back, and I walked in one insurance agency, and I say, I want to be an agent. I used to do this for fun. So since then, it's been 10 years that I've owned an insurance agency, and I never looked back. I was lucky to become a U.S. citizen, and I put that passport to a lot of good use. And You know, I become networking with folks, and whiskey was just I just love single malt. But you know, you start networking with the high end customers, and you realize quickly you have a terrible golf set and you have a terrible swing as well.
There we go.
Now you're in Tez's world.
There we go. Yeah. But I just enjoyed this conversation. Just listening, because there's been many levels where I'm like, oh, the connection of
yeah. How do you keep getting invited if you're terrible at a foursome?
Oh, because
you gotta be good at something. Which
because like as a white man told me one time, yeah, the way you're judged in golf is how many beers you can put inside of your golf bag. That's how you're judged in golf.
I am the one who always bought the good booze, and I will always tell the folks about the booze, and you know, I became the whiskey guy. You know, I'm terrible at golfing, but they always invite me because not only they can get, you know, there was a lawyer, there was a couple of people that were in business, like contractors and me. So who else can you talk to if you have issues when you have, you know, an insurance guy that can tell you everything you should not do, a lawyer that can advise you, and somebody that can lowly fix the back of your yard if you need to. That's like the perfect foursome, man. But it became something that was more cooler because you obviously are, you know, people are like, oh, you should do this professionally. Like every week you bring something and you tell us all this shit about it. It's like last time I took one of the whiskeys you showed me, I bought that to my boss. That is like, that guy was just great into art because he was just excited by the type of whiskey. He's like, you should do this, you know. And then he was more like, shall I do? Then I realized also there is a conversational piece opener. And, you know, I was reading an article that said every good conversation start with an opener, and the opener should be a point of interest. So it'd be like, nice watch, right? Oh, you know what my watch is, you know, is a Rolex, hey, blah, 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 Daytona, whatever. You know, people be like, oh, you know, nice car. You know, for me, it's like, you know, people be like, oh, what, McAllen 18? They'd be like, McAllen 18? What you know about McAllen? You know, and then it become a conversation. So I thought I can never afford a Bugatti or, you know, a Rolls Royce, but I can't even afford an AP but I know whiskey. So I started just digging in, and now I didn't buy because I heard of it. I bought because it's special, and I did my YouTube, my Google, and I researched it. So I would go to the store and I pass hours just looking for things, but another thing that I was realizing is no one looked like me. No one. Every time I would see a brother or a sister talking about anything spirit on YouTube, it was always the same stupid things that stereotypically we fall into. Is a cocktail with some Hennessy, a cocktail with a certain type of vodka, a cocktail with some Crown Royal, something that we mix with something to be something. Keisha's shaking her ass. You know, it's like something that is like a cocktail from somewhere where it almost made me feel like we were regressing stereotypically because no one ever started a conversation with what's your favorite Crown Royal. Like that never happened, right? So
even if it's going to be Crown Royal, we can at least talk, well, what is your favorite? What, like, we can get deeper than that with
right. So I wanted to change that. You know, I wanted to change that because I took the idea that the mindset that I had from insurance to change that part. To say, hey, I'm gonna educate the same way I teach people every day how to protect themselves. You know, hundreds of immigrants went through my office where it's like, hey, first time buying a car, don't speak English, you know, or first time buying a house, don't know how insurance works. I'm like, I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna be the first person that is gonna be an African that's just gonna take this whiskey thing and start teaching it. And you know, it was a struggle. It was a struggle. No one gives a shit about an African with an accent trying to tell them something that they've been drinking their whole life. And mostly I was talking about single malt and whiskeys from outside of America. And 7 years ago, somebody's like, have you ever had an old fashioned? I'm like, what the fuck is that? You should have an old fashioned. And I said, okay, I know of a highball, but I don't know what an old fashioned is. And it was with Woodford Double Oak. And it was like the sweetest nectar that I've ever had on my mouth. And I And I'm like, what is that? It's like, oh, it's made with bourbon. This bourbon is called Woodford. And I remember that week I bought all 6 different kind of Woodford I could find. And because I'm that obsessed. And then I'm like, oh, you should be more into bourbon. Then I realized that I went from me just posting about whiskey, scotch and all this, and no one will care or would like or would that for me posting bourbon. And all of a sudden people are like, oh, where did you find that bottle? Oh, that's kind of cool. What do you think of that? And then I'm like, oh, that's the hook. I have to kind of drive people through the American whiskey since I'm in America, and then I can go. And I kept doing that. 2020, I came on Instagram. I went from Facebook in 2019. In 2020, I went on Instagram. And 2021, I started a YouTube channel. I really didn't know how it's going to go. But I just kept waking up every day. And when I think of something dumb in my head, I would just put it out there. And then a friend of mine in 2021 was like, hey, it's almost like it's serendipity, right? Your history repeats itself. Looked at me and said, you know what you're doing. You're passionate about this, but no one is going to respect you if you walk in a room full of experts that do not look like you, if you have not had the proper education. And it's almost like I heard Anthony all over again. So I'm like, okay. So I went and got my WSCT. I got my certification in single malt and scotch, got my agave certification, and just took any saving that I had at that time and start visiting distillery, like the major one. And I just wanted to learn from master distillers and, learn how maturation works. Look at all those stills and what does that mean? And I'm more of a storyteller myself, so I love hearing people's story and hearing about folks. And that's what gave me the idea that no, I should have a podcast where people come and tell those stories to me. So other people that are buying this product don't know anything about the thing on the shelf now are hearing the story and going, oh, holy shit, I didn't know that. That's the story behind it. So now I'm here talking on a.
Now you've made the big time. You're on
ChipChat. Honestly, this could go down like we haven't had many episodes this year, but probably one of the best stories told, like on like. I mean, because you're obviously, Jack, you're just a natural communicator in general. Like
I try. Yeah, I can bullshit my way through anything.
Yeah, you managed to get here.
Right. But it's clear that you're able to obviously go in whatever room it is, and after 30 seconds, people are like, oh, I want to continue to connect with that individual, and that's rare. I just found like that whole ability of like, oh, I'm going to switch from dealing with computers to dealing with communicating with humans to be like, and like, because a lot of folks deal with just like, oh, I want to avoid these interactions where you're running to it. And I think we need more of that. And just like the sense of community that it seems like this built around like the classes and just, I mean, whatever you touch, it seems like you build community around it. So
it has to be. I
picked up 2 main themes in the story. One is like continuous transition, right? It's always moving on, growing, transition, and then it is always about a community thing. And I mean, we're just drunk idiots, but we do find like a lot of community. Both of us are people. Tez and I both just sort of collect new friends kind of wherever we go, and that public speaking thing, is another thing. I've never been afraid to be in front of a group to talk. I want every opportunity I can, of course, and everybody's usually trying to tell me to shut up, and so it's a weird thing when I find out that people don't like that. But also I do want to say, like, what we're doing here is a platform, right? So I want to make a point here to give you the opportunity. You mentioned your immigrant story. You mentioned how just one little thing can change somebody from being, quote, legal to illegal. I don't like that people can be illegal. That doesn't make any sense to me. But, whether it's overstaying, whether it's getting a job because you're hungry and you need to work, all of these things that, of course, are not part of the nuanced conversation when people talk about immigration. And that is the hugest thing going on right now in this country, besides the ongoing Viking raid on the federal government, is the soon-to-be mass deportation, if that's not already underway. I don't know exactly how to describe it. So I know you do a lot of work.
Happening.
Yeah, it is already happening, and it's terrifying. Quite honestly, it's terrifying. We're seeing it around here in the DC area that there's stories of these raids in schools and things.
Oh yeah, I mean
Scaring
the amount of call I've
Jesus
had
out of me.
in the last 3 weeks.
So I know you do some work with like other community groups, helping to support immigrants. I want to take this opportunity to say, do you want to like give a shout out or plug or any kind of information that people need to know should they be wrapped up in an ICE raid or need to know kind of who to contact or any of that?
We literally just talked about this. We talked about this on TikTok because more immigrants are there now. That's where they get the news. Is to remind folks that the number one thing I tell every immigrant is don't forget that you're an immigrant, right? People tend to be wrapped up, right, in their ability. I hold an American passport, and I still use the word immigrant when it comes to me. And I've had a passport over a decade, and I'm still saying I'm an immigrant. That should tell you something, right? I remind people: don't forget your position. Don't forget who you are. That's the base of number one. Number two. If it's not needed or is illegal, stay away from it. Reason why is because we know legally in this country, because of, as fucked up as it may be, because of due process, unless you're in a situation that requires somebody to look at you or in you, again, coming back to number one, know who you are, no one is looking at you yet.
Right.
So
stay off the radar.
Stay off the radar, right? I've never, it happens, but it's rarely that you hear somebody go, oh, I went to work and came back home. I went to the gym and came back home. I went and pick up my kid and came back home. Or I actually just, I went and grocery shop and came back home. And then I got in trouble somehow, some way. Right. I tell people that. As an insurance agent, I tell people all the time, do not give the opportunity for anybody at any time to get you in a situation. There is plenty of insurance company that will insure you without a driver license. They will take international driver license. They will take temporary IDs. There are companies that do that. So there's no need for you to drive without insurance. It may be more expensive, but you're still legal. Right? If somebody say ID and insurance and they see your license plate is good, guess what? If your ID is expired or your driver license expired, they will let you go and say, hey, go fix this shit. Right? Because they'll give you a warning, driving without a license or blah, blah, blah. Fix it later. But if you don't have insurance, that's a public safety. If you don't have a plate, that's a state safety. So those are things that people look at. Stay away from those things. There's always a solution. Do not open the gate for someone to have to take a look at you.
Well, that sort of speaks to this thing that, people, you hear this all the time on the right, Fox News and all this other kind of stuff. Oh, these criminal immigrants and all this stuff, even though the statistics time and time again bear out that criminality or insert crime number here is vastly higher amongst native-born American citizens than it is against immigrants in any state, whether it's with documentation or not, for exactly the reason that you bring up. That generally speaking, when people are here, they do know that first thing, that they are here as immigrants, and that the second thing is that they want to stay here, and so they stay off the radar. And there is statistic after statistic after statistic. But if you listen to what these racist, weird is the word, because it just doesn't, I can't understand where they're even getting this from. They think that they believe this stuff, that people are just running across the border to murder blonde women.
You also have to understand the example. I have this segment I used to do on my channel called Wisdom from Africa. Somebody said farting in a quiet room is always louder.
Yeah.
Right? That's an African wisdom. To remind you that if, let's say, you go to buttfuck nowhere, Texas, for example, because it's the reddest state out there. Buttfuck nowhere, Texas, small town, right? And let's happen that, Kojo has a son, and Kojo is the only African in town, and his son is getting picked on. by all these racist kids, right? And all of a sudden, few years pass and he become a teenager. He's like, fuck this shit. You fuck with me, I'm gonna punch the shit at you, right? Now Kojo just had a felony or have been charged because he live in a town where they can charge him as an adult. They charge him now. The news is not gonna be Kojo's parents have served this community, go to church every day, and this kid, just like every other teenager, after a soccer game or football game, was getting picked on by this kid, and he reacted. That's not gonna be that.
No.
Oh my God, this immigrant are taking over our town. Their kids are those criminal are, and then the news being as volatile as it is, just boom, go there, right? Then they nitpick on these small little stories that in every time and day never happened. This is just a repetition of what happened to African Americans.
Right. It's the same story all the time.
It's the same story all over again. It's like
find these
little tiny place of this little examples.
Yeah,
like,
they blow it up like it's common.
Like the perfect example of that, right? The perfect example of that is when he wasn't president and he was on a campaign trail. This immigrant that come here, they're eating our dogs.
Yeah, they're eating the dogs.
Ohio is the one. Yeah,
in Ohio, right? So imagine somebody that was fed up by their neighbor said something that they overheard 3 times over by somebody that had a problem with a neighbor, tell this on Facebook, picked up by the media team of the future president, not vetted, and he comes in on public news everywhere and just blurt it out.
He opened the debate with it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was the thing that was going to make him lose, because it was so ludicrous.
It galvanized.
You have to understand also that till today, people have lived in this country forever, right? Forever, right? We understand common decency. We understand how to be around others, right? Yeah. But then, till today, you still have people that are blatantly using the N-word towards African American. You still have people that ask African people, where did you live in Africa? Did you guys live in huts? Did you have a pet lion? Till this day, when Google is like at the AI level now. Yeah. So if that's a possibility, right? If that's a possibility, guess what? No one is far-fetched from Haitian are eating dogs and cat, even though in some African country and Asian country, yes, that's meat for the day. Yeah, but not here. Not here.
There's a lot of things that Americans do that seem pretty savage, so like we could certainly point to instances of those things. And yeah, I know it's the like
murdering school children.
Right.
Yeah, we murder school children in America.
You know what doesn't happen in Africa? School shootings. You know what does happen in the United States? Every day there's a school shooting. It's like so
no one
common
is going to come and point out the fact that any other place in the world, like I think the worst thing I've ever heard, even in West Africa, is, and again, is, overzealous teenagers. And it's always a girl involved. It's always the Romeo and Juliet thing. One family against the other. Everybody pulling out machetes. It's about to go down. On guard, musketeers is about to go down. And obviously, if they call the police in, everybody get baton on their head. Then everybody apologize to everybody. The whole neighborhood have a party. We forgot about it. It's gonna happen in 5 years again when another teenager get his dick hard because he's in love with another and have to fight with all the hormones. Right? That is a normal circle of life.
Yeah, sure. But it's here, not with guns.
No, it's not. It's not the ability to say, I have a whole, that's a whole episode to how white people raise their kids, but that's a whole nother episode. But for me, it's like that is a whole different symptom that is affecting America that we are not willing to say. No, we don't want Bethany to tell Methany about her gentle parenting. Beat your kids and make sure they actually don't go towards the gun. Guns are dangerous. Do not go close to them. Should we own guns? That's another open debate. I'm a gun owner myself. So, but my daughter never woke up in the morning and went, I wonder where my dad gun is. No, because
it's a killing machine. And
that's never going to happen. Ever.
Ever, right.
Ever, because when she was I be my kid growing up. She know there's some shit she'll never do. That's just that. It's simple.
We're gonna have another episode on like why white parenting is failing America. I think that's a whole other episode.
The reason why is we are not addressing the cancer of America, because addressing the cancer of America is admitting three things. Is admitting first that white America as a generation is failing America. That's one. It's also admitting that immigrants are making the country better, right? And that would be great. Right? And the third thing is admitting that it's about time that African Americans and Asian American that built, right, the backbone of this economy are due their place at the table as equal, without any room for any type of ambiguity of you are beneath me, right? Because the fragile white male, right? We're talking that as a quotation, white male ego, because we know white male is always supported by his counterpart.
Fragile white masculinity.
Ego is the only reason why we are where we at now. That's all. Because no one, and I've heard so many documentary of people coming and saying, oh, our population is regressing. The white population is regressing, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's true. Because most people are done saying, that's like, I'm like, yeah, my ex-wife is white. Yeah. So in her generation now, there's black blood in it. Right. It can never be pure, right? But that mentality had been crossed a long time ago when y'all sold and bought other people.
Right.
Thomas Jefferson already showed you that he can plant his seed everywhere around America. Now he's at the 6th, 7th generation of Thomas Jefferson entity. So that barrier had been broke a long time ago. Slave women, white slave owners have been fucking their slave for years, and forgetting that their wife was actually sleeping next to them. But no one addressed that loss. Till today, the black woman is always, sensationalized and put out there to be a sexual item. And the bringing this back to what y'all were saying about the people in Florida. There's one part that you haven't seen, both of you haven't seen, because you obviously haven't lived in a foreign country and came to America. But the one thing I remind folks usually is the colonial mentality and the slavery mentality are opposite twins that are connected.
Yeah.
What the colonialism did is to have people in colonial country believe in the white savior syndrome and looked at every single person in the slave country as they, the colonized, are above those people. Perfect example.
You're hitting it. I see where you're going. I know you're going with
every African person. When I was 3 years old, I remember 3-4 years old, you get those people coming to those churches and ONGs and all those people coming to help. And I remember as a kid, we'll see these white people come in, and as kids, you see like 10 of them walking around because they're gonna do some help in North Carolina or in an orphanage or something. And we scream, we'll be like, Yovo, bonsoir, ça va bien, merci. And we'll chant, right, as kids, because it was fun. And we were saying, white man, welcome. Are you doing good? I'm well. It's a chant since a kid that we did, because we've always seen them as that savior, right? So, but if I look on TV for all the VHS, that shows my age, the VHS that we were watching at that time, and the black and white TV, the black men, right, in America, and the black woman always played the prostitute, the one on the street. The black man was the gangster, the drug addict.
You were
and
programmed. You're
Correct.
programmed to what America.
I'm already programmed in my head
Yeah.
that every single person, right? I still remember this. It was May 12th, 2004, 2 days before I left for America. My dad, being the man he is, besides telling me not to be a knucklehead, knowing that I have a girl problem, first thing that man told me, and the man never came to America. He doesn't even know what America looks like. His advice to me is don't go running after those big booty bitches, American women, those black American women with them big booty bitches, because they're going to have kids by you. They're going to put you in child support and your life will be ruined forever. Like, think about it. This man never came to America.
The last thing you heard before you leave.
It was white supremacist bullshit from your own dad.
I find this so because like my family is Jamaican, and like I was born in England, and like like specifically in cabs, whenever I would be able to get in a cab and you talk to people and it could be a variety of people. It could be people from Africa, it could be Muslims, whoever it might be. But once they find out that you're not an American black, you start to see it. It comes out like, well, why are they always so lazy?
Yeah,
why don't they do this? And I always would have to come like, whoa. The only reason you're here in the immigration laws because of the American black folks.
But the only reason why is because the coding, right?
Yeah,
started way before you.
Right.
And call me a conspiracy theorist, but when people talk about how society changes, no one talks about somebody sent somewhere and coming up with a theory or how they can affect the brain certain way by feeding us some information that stays in their subconscious. It doesn't. You don't know the direct effect. So when people talk about what we consume as people, right? I tell people, even me, now I sound like I know what I'm talking about. 7 years ago, before that neck was on George Floyd's, like that knee was on his neck, I'm sure at a certain point I said something like, "Oh, these black Americans always annoying us." I did. I tell people I've been black a long time. I became an African American because of only one incident.
Okay.
Because you can be black a long time. See, one thing happened to you, and you go, Mr. Officer, I am not them. I am a black, but not the blacks, because he doesn't make a difference between you.
That's right.
Even if you open your mouth, and I remind folks all the time that people were coded. Is in Asian culture, it is in African culture, it's in Latino culture. Now is in Indian culture. Yes. And now let's take the local, right, the normal tradition of those countries and add that now to that colonial mentality. Now imagine Indian, we have the caste system.
Yeah.
So it's even worse because now the white man in the caste system represent the top level of respect.
Right.
And a black ass person like me is at the bottom of it. So the man doesn't even respect me because of my color to begin with. And then you add the propaganda to it, of course they're going to vote for Trump.
Yeah.
Let's flip that. You come to someone who is from Latino American, the Spaniards were here. They're sitting here. The white man is here.
Exactly.
So there's no way what anybody's saying around me, that none of those people can tell me a better thing than what the white man can tell me. African people, same thing. We know what dictators are. I had the same president for the last 20-something years.
I was going to say,
But even then, those people who say, "Oh, he said he's going to make us better. He's going to pay for tax," and now so many people wrote checks that their ass can cash because what they forgot. And you want to know the craziest thing? I'm going to give you a fact that you can use next time in your show. Because I'm giving you the African perspective. Apartheid ended officially in 1994.
Tell Elon.
How old Elon was in 1994?
Right.
But he might have been 10, maybe 10 years old, 16, between 10 and 16?
23.
Oh, 23. Well, yeah.
His dad worked.
Yes.
And went to school during apartheid. That motherfucker didn't go to school with anybody that was a darker color.
Right.
I also hear his mom's family moved from Canada because they wanted to be part of like the apartheid government.
Yeah.
Right.
They left because they were like, oh, this sounds good.
Like, oh, where can we be more racist? Oh, I know.
Canada isn't doing this.
Afrikaner, South Africa.
Correct. So just keep that in mind. And look at what could happen if 3 other motherfuckers that believe that white supremacy is the way to go. That autistic motherfucker dick is hard, have been hard since January, because it's every one of his wet dream as a kid that is coming to life.
In the most powerful nation in the world.
In the world.
And he's got
he just so happened to have the most amount of money in that nation.
At the time.
Doesn't just so happen. He put himself in this situation to do that.
When someone is looking at me and say, ain't no way he came in and put his hand up to do something, his heart goes out to people, I call bullshit. I call bullshit not because maybe at that time that's what he meant, but I call bullshit because since that motherfucker was born, he knew how to hate because he was taught how to hate.
Yeah, that's it.
I couldn't be clearer. All right, so look, Jack, this has been by far.
We could just do the show.
We've been doing the show this is the 10th year of this show every week. Okay, been doing the show live every week for 10 years. You are without a doubt in the top 5 interviews we've ever done.
I mean, hands down.
There's absolutely no question that puts you right in line with like a bunch of congressmen and various other high-ranking mucky mucks. So this has been absolutely fantastic. We can't wait to have you back. We do want to have you back if you will come back. I hope.
All right, we can talk about the whiskey.
I will be back.
We don't even need to talk about the whiskey.
Forget about whiskey. You're just gonna be a co-host.
I don't talk politics often because I know what it feels like to be hurt by politics, right?
That is so huge right there.
Yeah, I come from a country where people get hurt by politics.
Well, that's about to be the United States. So we appreciate any advice that you have for us, going into what's about to happen. Like I said, one of the best interviews we've ever had.
Just incredible.
We've got to have you back. So
incredible.
Please let's set that up. But we do want to make sure that you can tell everybody where they can follow you and how they can get some of these stories and all this kind of good stuff. He's got something official. Here he comes.
No. I had to plug in my computer because he was gonna die. So
okay.
I want to make sure that
dropping all these jewels, man. The computer can't.
Overtax the processor. Got to get that C++ experience back out and
right.
Write a better algorithm.
Got to go through this thing, but I'm hood sommelier everywhere. I'm hood sommelier on TikTok. I'm hood sommelier on Instagram. YouTube is hood sommelier by Jack Bigadoo. I'm you type Jack Bigadoo, chances are all my social actually. It took me 7 years, but now at least I can. Every now and then, when shit is going wrong in my life, I said, let me Google myself to see if maybe I'm still appearing as the person. I'm like, yeah, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook pages. Okay, I'm still okay. I'm still doing okay in life because
you're still the number one Jack Bigadoo in the world.
Till there's another Jack Bigadoo, I'm still the number one Jack Bigadoo on your search engine. So.
All right. Well, let me ask you this one final question. If and when I become president and I need an African advisor, like apparently that's what we do now is we have an advisor who's born in Africa. Will you help me reestablish basic governance
I will. I will at least help you reestablish what it means to give a shit. Right.
There you go.
Because I will be honest and say, I can play devil's advocate any day.
right
about what's going on.
Of course,
because I've owned a business, right? I understand tax cut, and no one understands tax cut more than me. Understand that, right? I understand, and for the folks that are here, there was a bill that was introduced, and I know why that bill did not pass through, because it's two women that introduced it. Because as much as we think Congress is progressive, they're even worse than everybody else back. But
we live in Washington, right?
Right. But the one thing I told people, and I said this before, and I'm gonna take my hat off before I say this, is the average immigrant in America. I bet my life on this. The average immigrant in America will be willing to forego 30% of what they're making now if you tell them that that's the path to become a citizen of this country.
Hands down.
Hands down.
Right?
Safety is the number one thing.
Correct. Instead of worrying about, right, deportation, this situation could be so much simpler if you say, we don't want anybody to be illegally in this country. So here is our solution. Mr. Future President, you hear this and you put it out there. Here's our solution. Here is going to be your path to become a part of this country. Do you know the best part I've loved when I wanted to become an American? Was learning about American history.
Oh, preparing for the test and
preparing for the test of immigration.
Yeah. Yes.
Knowing about the Native Americans was probably the best part of that. Why?
Well, you're not allowed to learn that anymore.
That even the questionnaire, right? The questionnaire is like, have you paid your taxes in the last 5 years? Have you had any felony? Have you done all these things, right? I love that part. Why? Because I was like, have you done this? Check. Have you done that? Check. Oh my God, I'm an amazing citizen. I've done all these things, right? If you tell someone today that for the next 10 years, here is your path to become a U.S. citizen by participating in this nation, you have to pay your taxes every year. You have to make sure you keep your license. Yeah, prepare for that transition test, right?
It might not guess it, but I just recently got my American citizenship too.
Right? and I tell people that, right? You literally have to make sure that you maybe the immigrant tax, right? If you're an immigrant, because of how your Social Security, maybe you pay 10% more taxes. I promise you, the amount of people that are already working for cash, if you tell them that first day, the Homeland Security Department is gonna crash.
Yes, yeah, there'll be so many applications.
Every single person in America that feel like they don't have a status are all going to run to that place and say, take all my month's salary, even if you want to, as long as I don't have to live in fear.
And whatever party does that then gains the votes of those people
for
a generation. A generation. It's whoever finally figures it out, a generation they get the votes of that party.
Because I'm like, I know this is like a strategy, right? They're gonna do all the 37 executive order. Steve Bannon said it before, and the New York Times reinstated today and said it's called gagging the media. Throw shit at them that they're going to talk about forever. Meanwhile, go do the dirty shit you have to do because they're not paying attention to that.
Focus too much.
Yeah, like cutting the deal to go take over Gaza, right? Or so you can get a new Trump hotel there. Like, or sending your guy to go talk to the guy in the prison, right? The guy who original idea was to put all the gangsters in prison. But if he did it, I'm sure we can Americanize and industrialize this thing.
That's right. There's money to be made.
All this thing, right? So those are all things that are actually the real issues we should be worrying about versus like, oh, he signed an executive birthright citizen. I knew that shit was going to get shut down because knowing how a law need to the constitution need to be changed. I had to go read and Google. How do you change the constitution? I'm like, he's never gonna get this done.
Yeah, you can't. You're like, you can't get no amendments. We're not passing no amendments in the Constitution.
Right.
He's never gonna get it done. So I knew immediately at that time those were flares to distract the people.
Of course it is.
If more people actually just stop and go, what's the real guy here? What is the real thing that is going on here?
But see, Jack, people don't have your curiosity. That's the problem. There's not
or the background in it too, because Americans this could go on forever.
There are some immigrants who don't want to do that either. Like they don't want to.
Yeah,
you said, oh well, what is it called? Like if we need to change this, and how do we change the amendment? People aren't curious enough to ask those questions, whether they're American or immigrants at this point. Like no, it's sad. It's just,
so here's what we should do. We should schedule you to come back every month. And we'll just do it once a month is going to be like the Jack
show.
The show
with us at 9. Exactly.
I don't even have to write anything.
For the next 4 years, right?
Yeah, for 4 years. You think he's leaving? That's very optimistic of you.
I'm done.
But we really appreciate you. So one more time, tell everybody where they can get you so we can go hit a break. Poor Brian probably is like mad at us. He wants to go home. And we always keep him in the studio too long.
Oh my God, Brian! I apologize. I hope.
No, it's not.
No. This is gold.
It's better that it's you and not us, because he hates mad at you. You're the guest.
Exactly.
So, all right, where can everybody get in touch with you one more time?
Instagram is the hood_sommelier. Facebook, YouTube, and everybody says hood sommelier. TikTok is hood sommelier. If you want to know something about what to drink the next time or what to impress your boss with, if you are a corporation on that, I'm still surprised. I have to say this. You guys should have more sponsors because
we'd love to.
People need to sponsor you.
Sales is doing a terrible job around here.
Yeah, we'd love that. You want to help us with that?
I'm gonna send your show to a few people and you guys need a better marketing person. Because you guys are doing this like two drunk people for sure.
A marketing person.
We would love that.
A better person, a person.
No, like an intern.
Yeah.
Like,
are you not looking at this? This is it. This is the entire show. This is 10 years. This dude right here.
I went and stalked you guys, and I looked at it. I'm like, if they put a membership on Opus Clips right now, they can probably take their shit and just blast it on. But and the other thing that you guys are not doing, I have to give you this.
Give us the feedback.
You literally need to change those stupid covers that you guys have on every one of your videos, because his head is here, your head. No one knows what the subject is about. I need you to change your Reels cover.
I don't even know how to do that. It just gets uploaded. Brian makes the clips. I upload them.
No.
I don't know.
The cover needs to be created because it has to be a catchy cover so people roll and go, what do you mean immigrants are the guy like big booties? Click on it. Let me see what is that. So it looks like it's attractive. Now you look like a third grader just went in and just uploaded a bunch of
do that, and we don't have anybody to do that, and we have no budget. This is it. I have been writing this show, doing this show for 10 years by myself with Tez, who just last 2 minutes before the cameras turn on and pretends like he does anything around here.
No. But you have to do what I had to do, and both of you have to do it. You have to go back to school to see. No. I'm not saying like back to school. I'm talking about the Google school.
Yeah, I saw.
Again, when?
While you walking your kids to bed, while they're sleeping, you read them a book instead of worrying about the show itself. Fuck it. Worry about how do I make this show be seen more, and what are the format? It's the
I have to quit my job.
Talk about
I have
that.
to quit my job.
We're going to
do you know what I had to do? I even quit StreamYard. I moved to Restream because Restream gives me now the ability to actually stream things in this way, even though StreamYard does, but then I can be on TikTok and that, because I had to go to school to say, how these people make their clip look so good? Mine look like yours.
We're not getting the StreamYard. We're not getting the StreamYard.
I'm doing all the things. I wore a jacket.
You know what? I appreciate you wearing the jacket.
I'm trying.
Just treat me like a
this
white
is the
man
feedback.
again.
This is the
just
feedback.
relax,
We need
my
this.
man. Relax.
Okay, look. No, stop doing this on the air. Don't give away all the secrets and stuff. We're going to call you. We're going to set up a meeting. You're going to tell us how to do it. Tez is going to actually do something around here for the first time ever.
You literally should be the guy in charge of rewatching the show and cutting clips.
You know who rewatches the show? Me and Brian. Brian watches the show and makes the clip.
Or he's in charge of making the covers.
He doesn't do that.
The shows.
Canva
is free. He can remake covers.
I barely get here before 9:30.
Speaking like an immigrant, right? Speaking like a true immigrant. I barely got time for anything.
I got 4 jobs, man. This is my 5th job. And I don't do this one that well. It's hold on.
Man, sit your ass down.
Oh. Yeah, there you go. All right, look,
I'm gonna check.
We're gonna call you about that. Go check out.
Thanks for having me.
This is a great interview.
This has been a great interview.
This is such a great interview. I enjoyed this so much, Jack.
All right, we're gonna take a break, and Tez is gonna learn how to do a cover. I don't care. Just make one cover.
Do a cover. Because even this show, when you guys are done, like the beltway thing should be on the side.
I got ideas in my head. I just don't
have you guys cut out to be on the side, and we put a title like "We Got an Immigrant That Love Whiskey," and people go, "What the fuck is this immigrant that love whiskey?" Clickbait. All right,
you've made him so because he's looking at me right now, and he's like, we
about time to do something.
If we could get him to do 2% more, not even like 30% more. 2%.
On that note, I'm gonna walk out of the family reunion now that I started some shit.
You gotta
I'm gonna let the family worry about it. Break time.
Thank you, Jack.
Get us really appreciate I'm gonna give me a Guinness.
All right, we're gonna take a break. You've been listening to Jack on ChipChat. I don't even know, sweeps for a little while.
I'm sick of all these witches and warlocks. You're full of shit. Pumpkin possums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lying. Because you're lying. That's why. Oh, there's energy and now we're done with Trump. You said he was the Messiah. You said he was invincible. I will not suffer your Q people after this. I knew what you were day one. I know what you are now. Witches and warlocks are full of shit. Pumpkin possums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why every goddamn thing out of your people's mouths doesn't come true. You said it was all over. You told us the stuff. You. Oh, God. Witches and warlocks, you're full of shit. Pumpkin possums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why witches and warlocks, you're full of shit. Pumpkin possums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why. Because every goddamn.
Bleach, blonde, bad bill, butch body, what a sight. You try to shine, but you just can't get it right. You talk the talk, but you can't walk the walk. In the world of Motown, girl, you're all talk. You try to play the part, but it's just a show. In the heart of Motown, you'll never blow. Yo, each blonde, what a sight, but you just can't get it right. Bleach blonde, but you just can't get it right.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and Beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Do Nothing Tez. How's it going, Tez?
There it is. There we go. That's a new nickname. Look, Jack out here saying the quiet part out loud.
Man,
no one told you.
He knows what he's saying.
Oh, he knows exactly. I mean, look, it's clear.
That was a fantastic interview.
Oh my God.
Brian has the incredible job of going back and cutting up an hour-long interview. So
I mean, it could be its own that could be its own separate.
It's like several episodes.
Just a professional on just many levels.
Okay, so when we eventually get back to doing whatever the hell it is that we do here poorly, apparently, is
that's the charm of the show.
Yeah, I thought so. It's sort of like when Men in Blazers was like a webcam show, and people were like, "This thing has no production value, but these guys are cool."
Suboptimal. It's the whole brand.
We're lo-fi, baby.
We're lo-fi. I tell people, look, I am Stu Gotts. If any, I am again. This is you are Dan Levitard on this. I just show up, man. I'm here, man. This is the year I do 2% more.
Oh my God.
The caravan of mostly Central American immigrants is now in the Mexican city of Oaxaca.
Yes.
I brought that. I brought that.
Yeah.
The Oaxaca. I didn't bring that. I brought that.
Contributed 2 links.
What is it?
All right, we're on to Elon and the Muskrat.
Yeah, no, we gotta go into rapid fire right now.
All right, so the new U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia is a guy called Edward R. Martin. You may know him because he was at the Capitol on January 6th. He just didn't break in, so he wasn't.
He also directed Game of Drones.
Yeah, different Martin.
I'm just joking. Ignore me.
And this guy, he's never been an AG. He's never even been a prosecutor. He's barely even a lawyer. And right now, he's out here threatening to sue anybody that or arrest anybody.
Arrest, not sue. Yeah, arrest.
Yeah, arrest anybody who criticizes Elon's stupid Doge thing. It's like he made public a letter that he wrote to Elon saying that the U.S. Attorney's Office would, quote, pursue any and all legal actions against anyone who impedes your work or threatens your people. Impedes your work? Like what? What? Like locking a door? Or not giving you the fucking passwords to the nuclear codes or whatever? Like, this is ridiculous. What Elon and his stupid 19-year-olds are doing is ransacking the government, stealing all kinds of confidential information. They're guaranteed to be leaking it in several different ways. The cybersecurity aspect of this is bonkers, okay? What he's doing is patently illegal. It's very clear that they know that it's illegal. They're just going to do it until they get stopped somehow, but I don't even know what the recourse is or who can stop them. And then you got this flaming idiot out here telling everybody that he's going to arrest you for even trying to stand up for your country. What the fuck kind of bullshit is that?
I mean, again, all of this comes down to the judiciary. And again, to your point, which I've been thinking a lot of the last few weeks, is the judiciary doesn't have a mechanism of making enforcements. So like, yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot. I do.
Remember when you told me I was crazy?
I mean, I still think you're crazy.
Okay.
That doesn't change. I don't think it's hyperbole to go out and say that we are in a full-blown constitutional crisis. I don't think it's, and I don't think it's hyperbole. There's been a lot of reporting. I think Politico's asked this. Variety of outlets have asked again, are we in a coup? And I think yes, if you look at the actual definition of that word, we're in a coup. And one thing I think that doesn't sit, and maybe this is the messaging that has to come from the Democrats, is that I don't think it doesn't sit well with Americans if you paint, and we see this already, a foreigner who has control over the mechanisms of government. And I don't think that sits well with people. I think if you start polling folks, even if they voted for Trump, they didn't vote for this. And I think him being
foreigner, so they're fine with it. Number one. Number two, it doesn't matter. It does not matter.
You think Steve Bannon isn't fine with this? Steve Bannon isn't fine with this.
It doesn't matter what Bannon wants. Elon's got the source code now. Okay,
yeah, I know. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I think
not fine.
Well, no, but I mean, it's fine in the sense of okay, he can have that, But I do think eventually Donald Trump still sours on him. And if he doesn't, the internal fighting eventually gobbles him up.
I think that's 100% gonna happen, and it's not gonna matter. What they're doing right now with their access, they are uploading spyware on all the government computers. They're embedding all kinds of code and all kinds of things that Trump's people will never be able to understand or stop, even when he eventually does come to blows with Elon and they split up. Elon will just go back to wherever he wants and start flipping switches in the government from his fucking phone. He'll literally be governing by tweet.
I think that the one mechanism that might save that from happening fully, and it'll happen in certain areas, is I think the age of government systems, and I know they tried to make some of those changes, like I think starting from Obama and forward, of like modernizing the government systems, but they're not there yet. And I think what you'll find is that super nerd tries to plug something in, he's like, God damn it, they're running this OS. I think you might end up seeing where they like what they want to be able to do. It's almost whether it's around the hardware, around the software, around like being able to change to turn the federal government, which again is a huge, it's a friggin' aircraft carrier. And I don't think this method of move fast, break things can work in the federal government. You can break things.
When he goes to try to reprogram punch cards, it's not going to work. But what I'm saying is that he could, even before this, affect chaos literally from a distance, almost anywhere in the world. He can flip switches and cause the internet to drop in huge swaths of the world because of Starlink. He's got his fingers in so many things, and now he's got the direct access and control. It's like a Bond villain, okay? It's worse than that. It's like a super villain. He has the ability to stop payments dead in their tracks. He'll be able to stop whole systems dead in their tracks. He'll be able to make it look like people did things that they didn't do. They're uploading and changing people's personnel files. Some of the people that they're targeting already are at least cybersecurity folks who know better and are tracking some of this. They're leaking it out. They're reporting it out. The damage is done, whether it's illegal or not, which it definitely is, and whether somebody eventually charges him, and whether they even move to try to capture him and convict him. The damage is already done. And this idea that the people will lose it, we are starting to see protests. They're small.
I saw people on the train. I saw people on the train this morning.
They're small, and they are going to continue to grow. And my prediction is that by the end of March, somebody will get shot at one of these protests. That whether it's a self-proclaimed Trumpista, vigilante, J6 pardoned individual decides that these guys are getting in Elon's way or getting in Trump's way, and they start shooting at him, whether it's U.S. Attorney Martin here ordering the FBI or somebody or the DC cops to shoot at somebody, it's going to happen. Whether that kicks something off or not, I can't really predict. But so far, not to be me about this, where I'm all into my own, success and not really caring about the outcomes, I keep getting this right, and everybody keeps telling me I'm crazy, and then I'm right, and then the next thing, and I say,
it's a small part, and it doesn't just nothing just ends like that. You might get this one piece right, but there will be a response. There will be some type of response.
It's going to be violence. That's where this is going to end.
That's not new. That's not new. And unfortunately, it seems to be that this is our turn to eventually, in the history of this country, to now we are going to see that. Because there's a time, right? I mean, even just like, we go back to between maybe 58 to 80? I mean, no, like there's been that's a tumultuous time in this country that isn't that long ago.
But I think it's going to be miles worse than that. It's going to be
miles worse than Is it going to be miles worse than the Civil War?
It's going to be 1860. That's what it's going to be like. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think. I think you have some aspects of it, but you don't have this national thing like that slavery was. I don't think there's anything that
No, but you have so many competing and violent factions here. You've got the cult of Trump and what they believe and stuff that dovetails with a bunch of people who have these alternate realities, whether it's they think it's QAnon or aliens or the moon landing or flat Earth or God knows what, and they're all heavily armed. You've got Elon,
the libertarian tech class,
Yeah. You've got Elon with his, unchecked wealth and absolute megalomaniacal crazy bullshit. You've got people who want there to be real governance, who might actually be able to organize in some form or fashion to fight back against any of this. I don't know how that's going to happen. You've got Native Americans who are about fed up with this kind of bullshit and people coming and threatening them and telling them that they're illegal for being here, even though that's the most ridiculous thing you could possibly imagine. You've got various groups of oppressed minorities in this country who are maybe had been willing to try to play ball with the mainstream in hopes that they will eventually be accepted and protected, who may say, forget it, we got to look out for our own. There are so many sides to this conflict that is coming, and where it touches off or how it gets going or where people draw lines and pick sides, I don't really know. But what I'm telling you is that this kind of ramp doesn't slow down. It picks up speed. And it's gonna go badly.
But people would have said that in the 60s as well too, and like kind of
but it wasn't true then.
But what do you mean it wasn't true? That there was a faction of people who said no, we want whatever it is, rights for women, we want rights for Black people, we want, and that came up to actual violence, right? Like there was, and like maybe it is one of those things where unfortunately we have reached to that point where this is the only way to then move forward, and a lot of people are going to get hurt in that. But the idea around, oh, this is over and it's going to be difficult, but like this country and the people in this country will always respond one way or another. What we're looking at right now is a response.
Well, yeah, but okay, so to take your example, the white supremacist forces against civil rights did commit violence against people who wanted there to be rights, but eventually the side of justice, right, the arc of history bent in towards justice, and we did achieve marked successes in terms of civil rights for various groups of people.
And there's a response, and there was a response to that.
And there was a response, but them gaining the rights didn't destroy the country the way that it was predicted by the white supremacists that it would. In this case, what Elon and what Trump are doing is specifically designed to destroy the country. It is not that they're trying to achieve something or modify with the intention of maintaining the democracy.
What they say destroy, they're reimagining the country as a white ethno state.
Yes, that's exactly right. So that is the thing where like the damage that they're doing is in a different category altogether. The thing that is happening, the kind of violence, the kind of reaction that's going to happen is in a different category altogether, and people are not ready for it. They are just not ready for white men not listening to white people's rules.
Right.
They are not ready for presidents who will openly defy court orders, but this is the new future, and that is the end of democracy.
But you're saying people aren't ready for it, but people have never experienced this, so we can't say the story will be told eventually. You don't know if they're ready for it.
I understand that too, but the conversation from the leaders, the Democrats are basically feckless at this point. They're doing nothing to help, and we don't have any strong central leadership group or person who is carrying the message saying this is wrong, and here's why, and here's what the stakes are.
We don't have time. I get that, but eventually there will be a event, and we're still not counting for the unexpected. I still look at like a COVID is one of those unexpected things. Maybe it's bird flu and it's 1,000 times. Well, I don't know, right? But I don't know maybe it's a full-on war with China over Taiwan. Like, I don't know what the unexpected
is. American troops in Gaza, for God's sakes. I don't know. Look, Jasmine Crockett's the closest thing we have to a leader in the party at the moment.
That's somebody. Jasmine Crockett is somebody. That is somebody.
But here's something, because Brian's gonna kill us. Here's some things.
How are we going longer now than we're not in this studio?
We have to mention that that the FBI is in the middle of a purge. These guys are all the agents are all getting fired.
But people in the FBI who are pushing back too.
Kinda, and here's where we're going to get to on that. Okay, the Trump people got the names of everybody who was even tangentially related in prosecuting the J6 cases. It's about 5,000 FBI agents and lawyers and stuff like that. They've got lists and they're going after them. These guys are fielding death threats on a regular basis. They are afraid to report it up their upline because they don't think that they're going to get. They don't have an upline. They're going to get. If they do, the upline is the one that's trying to send the J6ers to kill them. So it's not. There isn't a safe place to go. There are several FBI employees on Tuesday that filed a Justice Department, or they filed a lawsuit claiming that they're being politically targeted. That may help a little bit, but again, if the court order, comes down, okay, the bell can't be unrung. The names are already leaked. These people believe that they have an authority from the president to go commit violence against these people, and they will. They believe that they're going to get pardoned. They may. It is a problem, and there we are here. You and I are stuck having to defend the FBI of all things, that because the basic structures are being obliterated in front of us, and the stakes could not be higher, and people need to treat them as if they are that terrifying.
I need people to believe in the story of the FBI, even as much as I don't believe in it. I kind of need that whole concept of right? They play into the rule of law.
The G-men are the rule of law
in
right?
this country. Again, and people could take that and oh my God, look at this guy. It's freaking propaganda. And I'm not saying that, but I almost have to, again, all of this stuff back to what we were talking about with our guest, Jack. These are stories, right, that people believe in, right? The story of America is told one way. The story is the Constitution, is the Bill of Rights, is the power amendments, whether it's 13, 14, 15, 19, right? Those are the stories. And people aren't believing in these stories. And I get why. I understand why. I get it.
Yeah, but it's going to cause a breakdown of the overall. If each chapter starts to fall as something that doesn't resonate anymore, then the whole book unravels.
Yeah, it does. And then I wonder though, right? Because let's take something like mass deportations, right? And I think a lot about the food supply and they want to snatch people's visas. You think about the 4 big meatpacking companies, right? And they want to snatch visas from people who are here illegally, right? Or are here legally to work, right? Using those visas. And at a certain point, you make everything you ran on, the changes that you want to make are going to almost kneecap everything that you, and I know you're well, no one cares, but I do think people will look up.
No, they're going to care, but they're not going to be able to do anything about it.
Yeah.
The Trump people aren't going to care that the American people are pissed off that they can't get food. They are not going to care in the same way that the East Germans did not care, right? If people were upset because there wasn't food or there wasn't gasoline or there wasn't, basic necessities, and the people protested or rioted, what did the East Germans do? They sent the Stasi out to go massacre.
How does that work? How does that work with consumerism, with capitalism? I just don't think that though. I think the people not being able to consume, that will drive people out in the streets.
It will, and then they'll get shot. That's the thing, is that the Trump people are not interested in any actual achievement other than power and the exercise of power. They are
who's shooting these people? Who's shooting these? Who's shooting these innocent Americans?
The Trump security forces, the loyalists, the people who are getting the spoils of his looting of the federal treasuries. Whether it's the starts with the J6 pardoned people who now feel that they're totally invincible.
I could see the militia piece of that.
The militia.
I don't see the army. I don't see the United States military doing this.
No, but the people will defect. They'll disband. They'll go join Trump's army. They'll set up a new thing called the New Army or the Real Army.
What about the people who defect? What about the people who defect the other way?
That's what it's going to take. That's what I'm saying. This is 1860, but worse. Trump has laid the groundwork. He's following the fascist playbook. He's doing the Mussolini trick. He's doing the Hitler trick. He's got the loyal foot soldiers. He's going to continue to be able to reward the loyal foot soldiers for long enough to establish a bigger group of loyal foot soldiers. and then he's going to be able to just do whatever the fuck he wants, and there will be no recourse. There's not going to be an election.
I don't think this team is smart. I don't believe in
you underestimate how many smart people have decided to join this group and now think Elon is one of them. Elon doesn't even believe in half the stuff that Trump's doing, but he wants to be the one to save the world, and he wants to be the one to do it in his own image. And here he's found a way to do it, and that's it. Trump wants to ban. Trump says he's banning electric cars. That's the whole basis of Tesla.
It's just, to me, it's anti-American not to think that there won't be a resistance.
I want there to be a resistance. God help me, I'll sign up. I'll be a non-commissioned officer in the resistance.
And I think that is just, I don't know. I mean, this country is built off of rebels, right? And it depends on what viewpoint you look at the rebels. Are they rebelling against King George, or there's other rebels that were rebelling against President Abraham Lincoln? And there are these things, and I think there will be another set of rebels, and it is, what does that look like? Who is going to rebel against this? I don't even know what you call this. Like, I don't know. It is
fascist dictatorship is the word you're looking for. All right. Speaking of can't unring the bell, 3 federal employees unions are suing the Trump administration in an attempt to stop the Treasury Department from sharing confidential data with Elon. They may end up doing that, but Elon's already got the data and he's already absconded with it, copied it, taken it wherever. So, like, again, you can go to court and you can win, but it's after the fact. It's always after the fact. The legal recourse is always after the fact. You cannot unring the bell, and the Trump people know it, and that is what they're doing. Speaking of not unringing bells, let's talk. Trayon got expelled officially.
That was clear that's going to happen.
How does this read?
I mean, ideally, this goes back into just like where we're at, and some will blame Donald Trump for this, but there's no shame, right? In the past, right? I think I'll look at Jack Evans, right? Jack Evans would have been the closest person to go down this road. He would have been expelled on there, but the reason he wasn't expelled is because he resigned. And usually you just resign.
Well, right? And also Jack Evans crimed a little bit better. Not a lot better.
Not a lot.
A little bit better, in that he had a plausible legal argument about what he was doing that was very obviously bribery and corruption.
But still resigned.
Trayon took a handful of cash.
But still resigned, right?
Of course he did, because he was dead to right.
Yeah, I mean, in this case here, I think Trayon would have been better off resigning. I think what's interesting is
he's going to win his seat back, isn't he?
It's a possibility, which people are allowed to do, right? They're allowed to. That's.
I bet you he wins it back.
If he does, that tells me again, though, that no one was able to create a persuasive argument to say that they because I think I'm going to be you for a minute. I'll be you for a minute. Let's say I went ahead and I'm going to go find a nice property and live in Ward 8. Maybe I want to live somewhere, I could, if I was going to go and run for Ward 8 council, I could tell the story of what Ward 8 is, the history, right? Or tap into Frederick Douglass and his sons living there, or like something like Barry Farms and what happened, and galvanize the people to buy into the story of like, oh, you are history, you are DC history in this ward, right? And I just think there's a lack of imagination to sell not in a bad way, but to sell an idea to a group, to the most forgotten individuals in DC. And he could easily win again, but then that tells me that then there's no one that is able to kind of go in and give a better alternative. And granted, right, if we think about it, he beat out, I think when he runs initially, he beats out one of Muriel Bowser's handpicked individuals.
Yeah.
He tells a story in Ward 8 that people were able to buy into. And I don't remember a lot. I'm trying to think back to that campaign. I was running around drinking whiskey during that time. But as I remember back to it, I feel like he beats out a Mayor Bowser pick person, and those people just want to feel like they're heard. And I think, to his credit, he was able to make people feel that. And no matter how you feel about him, he has an impact in that ward. And this incident here is a lot of noise that deviates away from focusing in on like what that ward needs and like allowing those people to like, again, have a voice in the city. So
I think that somebody could beat him if they came in and instead of talking about connections to Barry and Douglas and all of this, that they talked about a future for Ward 8. Because right now,
you could tie that together. You could tie the past.
You can. But so much of what Trayon is doing is talking about what was and not what can be and what will be. So, but I think he wins. I think he wins hands down. I think he comes back, and I think McDuffie has to somehow sit next to him again and tolerate this. I don't know if they're going to kick him out again if he wins. I mean, what are they going to do? They're going to.
I think what you would see is either another mayor back candidate in the ward, which could dethrone him, but
that could backfire though, because people are pissed at this and they want to stick it to the council for kicking him out. They're gonna rally harder for him.
No, I mean, but there's a clear opportunity for people to get out in the neighborhood. Someone should have been out there, not even now, as soon as all this popped off.
Yeah.
Just something like, and I don't know. I haven't kept up and I haven't asked too many questions around it to see if there's people there, but like that there's like, I haven't heard of a voice that's jumped out yet. Maybe
no.
On these DC for Dem.
I need to
go to DC for Dem call, and there's one coming up soon that I need to jump on and just take a peek to see what's happening there. But no, he could easily win again, because he does play up on kind of the Barry like second chance. Remember what I did for you. I don't know if I don't know. His record is nowhere near what.
No, it's thin, but
there are wins there of what, again, like if someone was murdered in your neighborhood and he is there, he shows up, and that is more than some do. That's more than most do.
There are a lot of people who might not really notice or care about legislative wins, but they do care when somebody comes and holds your hand, and they do care. And I believe that Trayon seems to be motivated in at least his community, constituent relations aspect, by the right things, and he is very sincere when he cares, and he shows up to comfort a family that's gone through a tragedy, and he also cares when he's out, hanging out with the kids and just chatting with the neighbors. So I think he means it, and the authenticity is hard to beat, whether it's the mayor or otherwise. And I know that people like Bowser are not super popular in some parts of Ward 8 because of they don't see
the authenticity at all from her. So
yeah, she's not authentic, and she's pro developer and all of this other kind of thing that sort of a weird divide line in the country or in the city. I would also, just interesting stat in all the stories here about this that kind of popped out to me is that the city council paid Latham and Watkins, the law firm, $400,000 to figure out that Trayon took $156,000 in bribes. And it is just one of these things where it's like, if you were going to spend that much money to unseat the guy for taking far less than that, maybe just cut him a deal, give me the money back or something. I mean, it just,
someone get mad at me. Someone get mad at me, but those are the individuals to me that are criming better.
And yeah, of course, the lawyers are criming better,
and it's not a crime. So I don't want to say it that way. Let me not get.
Well, they're getting paid to do something where they figured out what was obvious, and it. I don't know. I'm just saying that the numbers there, the math ain't mathing,
But the council has to do that. The council,
of course, they do. But the optics are terrible.
They are. But again, in a bygone era, he would have resigned and you wouldn't have had this issue. And he could have ran again. He could have ran again after that. But like the process to this should be you resign. there's a special election. You don't run in that special election. Another person takes the seat. You let them hang out there for a little while, and you come back in 4 years.
Right.
That's kind of how we used to do this type of stuff. We don't do that anymore. And like,
we don't do a lot of things anymore. Speaking of things that we don't do, this segment is called International Stupidity. A New York woman has become an unlikely viral hit since she got trapped in Pakistan trying to marry a teenager.
Oh my God, one of my employees was telling me about this literally 2 days ago. I did not know about this story.
I'm assuming that this was a Brian ad. What the fuck is going on here, Brian?
I just heard about it. This story is kind of crazy.
So anyway, sorry about that. And let me get myself together here. It's been a minute because I was playing my the show. Anyway, so yeah, this woman, Miss Robertson, apparently she was in communication with this Pakistani kid. He's 19, and she just spent all her savings, got her a ticket, flew out there. I think somehow met the kid, and the kid was like, I don't know who you are, what you are, why you here, what the hell is all about. And she claims that he was supposed to marry her and all that stuff. And she just ended up doing her version of the Terminal with, the great Tom Hanks, and just stayed in the Pakistani airport and claiming that I am not leaving unless you pay me what I think $5,000 a week or $50,000.
Yeah, $20K a week. This week in my pockets in cash. That's a demand to the government.
Right. And I'm like, really? I mean, it just did not make sense. And just like you, Tess, I mean, I saw this on Instagram. I was like, is this for real? I
thought this was 90 Day Fiance the other way.
Yeah. A bad way.
I thought this is one of that. Literally, when I heard this story, I was like, "Hey, hold on, is this not?"
Yeah. So now the update is, she is still in Pakistan.
Oh,
they moved her to a mental institution
in Pakistan.
That's got to be great.
Yes. So, and like one of the recent videos, she ended up doing a weird dance. I don't know why. So everyone's trying to claim this as mental illness or what have you, but really it's just I don't know what this woman's just.
I mean, clearly, this is mental illness.
Well, not in a way that I would interpret it. I just feels like this woman is just, look, I don't know why you have the weird feeling of going across another country, especially in the Middle East, to claim the husband who is definitely, 13, 14 years younger than you, that you have been in communication with.
Or not. I mean, maybe she just thought she was talking to this guy. Who knows?
I guess. I mean, again, I heard that she gone through some financial issues, here in the States as well. Shocking. So
utterly shocking.
Yeah. So there's a lot weird going on here, and hopefully it just dies down. It's the weirdest 15 minutes I have ever seen. So compared to the other stuff that's been going on, but I just felt like, it kind of intermixed with what you guys have been talking about, with this sense of, what you're doing to, again, the exports of criminals and the exports of, because technically it's like the Pakistani government wants, like, yo, you guys get your crazy and get out of here,
emptying our mental institutions to other countries.
Yeah, she needs to be sent back.
Yeah.
Just deport her.
Yeah, but they're trying. But again, they don't.
What do you mean they're trying? Why is this difficult for them?
Wait,
I don't know. That's the other part. I don't know why it's difficult, because I think due to the fact that, like, the American government is really has no interest with it.
Then they should threaten tariffs. I hear that's how that works. If you want to deport somebody to a country and they won't accept them, you just threaten tariffs and then they accept them. That's how diplomacy. Were you not paying attention? Speaking of how diplomacy definitely doesn't work, Trump said that he wants to own Gaza.
Yeah,
I literally,
Middle East.
I literally dropped my phone and said, "What the fuck?" audibly in my kitchen, in front of my kids and everything. I was like, "What the fuck now?"
It's so American. It's such American. Like it is. It seems crazy, but the Israeli state, powered by America, just decimates, right? Just kills people. A genocide, right? At this point, easy.
It is.
It's a genocide, right? We don't even whatever. We don't have to couch this on anything. And then developer man
comes in and
comes in and says, and you know he thought of it 15 minutes before.
Yeah, he barely. It was like so half baked, and he had it like scribbled down on the paper because you could see he was like looking at the paper, and then he goes, "I've been thinking about this for a long time, and everybody I talk to loves it." That's how you know he just made it up. And so he says this incredible thing, and BB's right next to him, and BB
mentions it in the meeting. From what I heard in the report,
at the press conference,
but he mentions it in their meeting, scribbles it down, and it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, I think this is what I think it's gonna.
And so he says it, and BB looks at him like, okay, guy, and then like the next day, you know, everybody's reacting to this. What's the legal framework for this? How could you even really do this? Are you talking about putting American troops in Gaza? Who's going to pay for this? All of these kinds of, these are all like legitimate questions, right? So Steve Witkoff, who is Trump's like man on the Middle East, goes and has lunch with all the Republican senators, and they all have honestly pretty legitimate questions. Dude, did you just say you're going to send Americans to like take over Gaza to do what exactly?
MBS turned over the bone saw and stopped what he was doing.
Yeah, right, exactly. And you're gonna like wholesale like pick up and move 2 million people to where? There's no country that wants them. Where are you gonna put them? And so they all go like, did he really mean this, or was he just speaking like off the cuff, right? And Witkoff goes, oh yeah, no, he's been thinking about this for months. He's been really working this out. Instead of, oh yeah, he's just saying stuff. You know how Trump is. He talks off the cuff, and like he could have got out of this. But instead, no.
Don't take him literal or whatever.
I triple down on it. They go, absolutely, we're going to redevelop Gaza. It's going to be the Middle East Riviera and all this other bullshit. They doubled and tripled down on it.
I like how what Jack said. He did mention the fact that this is all a distraction, and but I feel like, look, you mentioned Canada, Mexico, Greenland.
Panama.
Is it
now Gaza? It's like,
it's 1980 in Trump's world. It's 1980.
Yeah,
it's always 1980.
Yeah, I just viewed the fact it's like he has. I hate repeating a record. It's just the concept of him being in here makes no sense. He does not have no intellectual reasoning for what he says every time, and especially when he's off the cuff, because all it does is just shakes this tree. All these leaves are coming down, and everybody's trying to grab what he's trying to say. But in the end, it's like, look, you have to look at the remaining leaves on this tree, because those are the ones that are being stuck there, and those are the ones that are more important to focus on, instead of the ones that he keeps rattling off. And I just feel like every time he's going to rattle off something, and again, have another country in his mouth, literally, and everyone is going to freak out over that, because it's pretty much is like, I really don't think he has an idea of what he hasn't had an idea of what he's been doing since 2016. And it's all it is like you said when he first got in, it's the same shit, just a different time. He's older, more bitter, and everything. It is just ridiculous. Like,
it is a distraction here. It is a distraction, but it's not an intentional distraction. Don't mistake that he's like playing 3D chess or anything. He just does everything all at once. And then some of it works and some of it sticks, and then other people are doing things in the background, which you're absolutely right to be paying attention to.
Right.
This is part of the smoke and mirrors or the fire hose of bullshit or whatever metaphor you want to use here. But my criticism is how the media has reacted to it by like finding experts to then ask these questions. Could he really do this? What is the legal framework here? And like people are talking about it like it's a legitimate thing that he said. It is not, and they should just bury it and forget about it.
Well, they're following rules that are not like that aren't in play anymore, and like
right.
The media is trying to follow this as again as if this is 1980, and like we have like again 3 stations on the networks, and people are sitting down consuming this news. I mean, I think by this time next year's going into whatever the State of the Union is. I think
I told you State of the Union.
I mean, well, yeah, right. I think
the State of the Union.
No, there'll be one.
It'll be a Nuremberg rally.
I think again, what's going to end up befuddling them is they're going to get an executive who, by this time next year, will be more feeble-minded, will be more incoherent, and again, what I expect is everybody trying to invoke the 25th Amendment with him in the next 18 months. And that's a different scary proposition, because then we're looking at JD Vance and some sort of Peter Thiel and Elon Musk running everything at that point, which Peter Thiel running things might even be more scarier than Elon Musk. I don't care what I don't. You might say it's the same thing.
Kind of already be. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, it easily could be. But you're fighting to the like. What is there's only one self-correcting mechanism left, if that's allowed, and it's the midterm elections.
Right.
That's the last one. And these smaller elections, I think, that are happening, right? Those again, I forgot what Democrats won.
Special elections
in there. I mean, but like that's but again, you can't give up on what the tools that are there to affect the change, and that tool is a switch in the House. Excuse me, and yeah, that's the only check on this. And I think another one that we're not thinking about, where I do hope in this because we're already hurting the federal workforce, but the government's shutdown has to be weaponized, for lack of a better word, at this point.
Yeah,
it has to be.
Well, the Democrats should just never vote for anything. Make the Republicans own everything.
But they did their first part, though. They had to. Again, he wins the popular vote. They try to see who can we, right? Because they don't want to be these obstructions.
Yeah, but there's no legitimate ones. This is who they're talking to. This is who they're backing. This is who Republicans have all signed up to work with.
They tried in the first 2 weeks. And we're done.
Let them govern. If I'm Jeffries, I don't give them a single vote on anything. The media needs to stop covering the crazy bullshit. Yeah. When he says this kind of stuff, stop talking about it. It's not a legitimate topic. It's not worth discussing. Don't go find experts who can weigh in on it. Don't do that.
But again, but why do they do that? Because of engagement, of what drives. I think marketplace, and granted, I'm not the best person to talk about marketplace because I'm biased at this point. But I thought they've been doing this story on like aging in the economy, right? One of those longer pieces. And when he started making a lot of these crazy changes, the Treasury takeover, they didn't break from that story that day. I think it might have been a Tuesday. And I remember Kai saying, hey, we know that there's going to be a hose of stuff that comes out. We did it before, but our job is to give you information for the long-term economy, right? What it's going to be in the long term. Because again, he's not always going to be here. Effects of him will always be here. But again, more people need to focus on that, but it's hard because again, we look at CNN, they've made their changes, right? Everybody knows in the media that he can drive engagement drives ad dollars, and that's what they're going to run for.
Well, and they took the end racism off.
You beat me to it. The end of the show would end racism in Enzo.
Yeah, well, because it's fixed. All right, so the post office banned small packages. Less than 12 hours later, they went back on that, and they're like, nah, I guess you can get stuff from Temu. And then a federal judge on Wednesday indefinitely blocked Trump's dumb effort to curb birthright citizenship. U.S. District Judge Deborah Boardman issued a preliminary injunction after a court hearing in Greenbelt, Maryland, former home of Bellway Radio, in a lawsuit brought by civil rights groups aimed to stop Trump's order on the grounds that it violates citizenship clause, which it does. And she was like, get fuck out of here. So again, I'm not really sure what there was that he could have done in terms of like not issuing birth certificates. That's a state thing. It's not a federal thing. But it's just good that finally there was like a rule of law. Now let's see how this gets litigated. I will bet that Beer Can Brett casts the deciding vote, and I bet that he says birthright citizenship stays. That's where I think it goes.
So who is it? It's John. It's
Roberts and the 3, and Beer Can Brett makes the 5.
I think you get Amy on this as well.
You might.
I think you get Amy Coney Barrett on that. I think,
and you might even get Gorsuch on this. You're not getting Neighbor Clarence or Salmon Alito, but Gorsuch might be on his.
They're bought and paid for.
Yeah, but subject to the jurisdiction thereof is the operative clause. If they're not subject to the jurisdiction thereof, like they're diplomats, then they're also immune to all of the laws.
And isn't it subject to? And doesn't that still fall on the states back to the issuing of the birth certificate, right?
Yeah, that right. Subject to the. Well, the question is, do you interpret subject to the jurisdiction thereof to mean like, let's say you're in a protectorate outside the borders of the United States? Are you subject to the jurisdiction thereof? Yes. Therefore, you have citizenship if you're born, say, in the Canal Zone. The other way to look at that is subject to the jurisdiction thereof, like specifically excludes the children of diplomats. If they can't have a child who's born in the United States while they're serving diplomatically, where they're not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, and therefore they can't have a citizenship, anchor baby, whatever you want to call it. If it's that reading, which is where the Trump people want it to go, then that also means that people here who are here without papers are also not subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof.
Right.
And I would really hope that they're not opening that door, because that's a terrible idea. So just like where this goes. Yeah, you might be right. ACB might go that way too. So maybe it goes there. There you go. We got to the end.
Yay!
Sorry, Brian.
Almost 3 hours. Thanks to Jack Bigadoo for being a fabulous guest.
Fucking interview. Such a great interview.
Possibly the best guest. Many people are saying. Big guy came up to me, tall guy, strong guy, tears in his eyes, crying. He said, Sir, you got to get Jack back. Okay. Thanks to our radio partners, USAID, the Department of Labor, and the AFL-CIO.
All that none exist anymore?
Yep. Well, AFL-CIO still does. Thanks to NOTN for keeping us on for another week, we assume, although we have not checked. Thanks to our home on the interwebs, coplaymedia.com. And thanks, as always, to our family here at Beltway Radio for making us sound as smooth as the side-eye BB sent Trump at the press conference. All right, where can everybody get you on the socials there, Tez?
In the gulag. No, not yet. You can find me at DC Cortez on Blue Sky.
There you go. And you can find me and the show on the Twitter at ChipChatRR. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at RipChipChat. You can find me on Blue Sky with my old Twitter handle at Chef Chip. And you can, of course, find us every Thursday night here on Beltway Radio at 9:30. I'm Chip. That's Tez. That's Brian. That was Jack. You've been listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
Hope you enjoy what we promote. Chip Chat.